A man and a huge monster stood opposite each other in the arena. The giant swung his fist with brass knuckles at the fragile youth. The guy is about to be killed by a monster to amuse the other monsters. The full arena roared with delight. Suddenly, the young man laughed loudly. It seems the guy has found an answer to a question he had been asking himself for a long time. Mom congratulated little Gabriel on his birthday. He received a small white cat as a gift. The boy greeted the kitten cheerfully. But since childhood, Gabriel has been fascinated by death. Mom was horrified when she saw the dead cat. The boy with the knife in his hands said that the kitten was acting strangely. So the child decided to find out what was going on. The cat, its belly cut open, was floating in a pool of its own blood. The mother realized that her child was not like other children. Hugging the baby, she whispered, "Everything is okay. They will figure it out." The mother thought that if the child was busy all the time, the strange inclinations would disappear. And for a while, it actually worked. Gabriel was especially fascinated by wrestling. The boy had no equal in sparring. He enjoyed beating other fighters. One day, he really wanted to finish off the defeated one. The mother understood everything and hugged her son, begging him to stop it. The enraged boy hit his mother in the face. It was the first and only time he felt guilty. Although my mother said that it was nothing and everything would be fine. After that, he did everything he could to make his mother believe that he had become normal and his inclinations had disappeared. Gabriel wanted to spare her the horrific truth. He wanted his mother to be happy, although he never really understood what that meant. Life went on as usual. But one day my mother felt very ill. The plate slipped from his suddenly weakened hands and broke. It seemed like Mom knew what was happening to her. The child looked at his mother with eyes wide with surprise. Cancer killed a woman within a few months, and before her death she confessed to many things. She told her son that she had found the place where he buries animals. Mom sighed. She understood that the boy could not do anything about it. She also knew that he was hiding it from her so as not to hurt her. Before she died, his mother wanted her son to make 2 promises to her. First of all, don't do this to people unless you have to defend yourself and the person deserves it. Secondly, Gabriel must be sweet and kind to everyone. He must have friends with whom he can talk and laugh. Mom wanted everyone to see what a good boy he was. The woman died a few days later. It was the only time Gabriel felt pain, but he didn't cry. He should have, but he couldn't. The boy was taken in by his aunt and uncle. He tried his best to keep the promises he made to his mother. Gabriel made a friend, Diego, and one day they went on an excursion. Diego was very excited about the upcoming bus ride, even more than about going to the planetarium. He's already been to the planetarium with his parents, and the bus tour is cool. And then Diego accidentally collided with a tall guy. He rudely told the fat guy to watch where he was going. Diego smiled ingratiatingly and asked Kevin if he was okay. Kevin grabbed Diego by the lapels and shook him. Anger flashed in Gabriel's eyes. The tall guy asked Diego if he would mind punching him in the ugly face to teach him not to take up the entire hallway. Gabriel grabbed Kevin by the fist and demanded that he let Diego go since he had apologized. Kevin growled that this little guy probably wanted some too. Gabriel suddenly squeezed Kevin's hand hard. The young man looked at the boy in surprise. Anger burned in the fragile boy's eyes. Kevin let go of the fat man and asked if Gabriel seemed to want to fight. The girl took Kevin by the hand and asked him to leave the children. Otherwise, they would be late for the bus. Kevin smiled at his cute girlfriend and said she was right. Turning around, he told Gabriel that he was lucky. Next time, he would crush his bones. Diego sighed with relief. It was very close to a fight. Gabriel agreed with his friend. He had a screwdriver behind his back. The young man took out a gun and was ready to stab the guy. In his mind, he asked his dear mother if this all meant he could kill Kevin. Boarding the bus has already begun. Diego was pleased. The best seats were still available. The young man explained that the middle row is located between the emergency exits, far from the teachers and close to the toilet. Kevin got on the bus and tried to kick the kids out of the back row. Grabbing the young man by the lapels, he shouted at him to get out. Diego was glad they sat away from the hooligans. Suddenly, someone told Kevin to stop. The boy demanded that Kevin leave them alone. Otherwise, he would mention his behavior to the school council. Kevin's friend asked who the nerd thought he was. Kevin asked Cedric with a grin if he really thought he had the right to boss him around. The class representative fell silent, confused. Gabriel thought, what a strange scene. All this fuss over a simple seat. No, Kevin just wants to show that he's an alpha male, even if it's just a simple place. Cedric saw this behavior every day, but did not interfere. So why did he decide to do it today? Does he really care about his classmates? Or does he just want everyone to believe it? The teacher came in and demanded that everyone sit down in their seats. Kevin angrily told Cedric that he was lucky this time. The teacher said that they could set off and asked if everyone was there. The girl said that Melissa hadn't arrived yet. Someone said, "There she goes already." Indeed, a girl ran to the bus and asked me to wait for her. The teacher scolded Melissa for constantly being late. The teacher told the bus driver that it was okay to go. The man pressed the gas pedal and the bus moved off. Melissa, who had not yet sat down, swayed from the sudden movement. Gabriel caught her by the shoulders to keep her from falling. He asked the girl if she was okay. For some reason, Melissa's cheeks suddenly flushed. She stuttered as she thanked Gabby. Melissa immediately began to apologize for calling the young man Gabby. He didn't understand what was wrong with this girl. She needed to be calmed down. He allowed her to call him Gabby and advised her to find a place for herself. The bus was already speeding through the green outskirts of the city. The track was flat and calm. Melissa settled down next to her friend. The teacher said that they didn't have long to go and suggested that they go through the program. Suddenly, the bus shook as if there had been an explosion. The frightened schoolchildren clung to their chairs. No one understood what was happening. The bus braked and stopped. The teacher asked the driver what it was, whether it was an earthquake. Diego asked his friend what he thought it was. Gabby noticed a strange smell. Diego was embarrassed, perhaps out of fear, but Gabby said it smelled like sulfur. A huge bolt of lightning struck near the bus. Kevin asked if they saw that huge lightning bolt. Diego cursed and asked in fear what it was. Gabriel saw that the phone's battery was low, although a minute ago the phone was almost fully charged. Something resembling a tornado began to swirl around the bus. Gabby fastened his seatbelt and asked Diego to stop screaming. He advised his friend to fasten his seatbelt and, like him, bend over and cover his head with his hands. The teacher shouted at the children to hold on. A bus carrying schoolchildren was caught in a strange tornado. The frightened children saw lightning strikes piercing the bus. Cedric gritted his teeth and gripped the seat. Kevin hugged his frightened girlfriend and closed his eyes. Diego, following his friend's example, fastened his seatbelt and covered his head. Gabriel was surprisingly calm. The tornado funnel that had captured the bus swirled ever faster. Soon, everything became quiet on the highway, but the bus with the schoolchildren disappeared. Gabriel opened his eyes. He hit himself hard. The guy cursed and seemed to have passed out. The guys started to get up from their seats. The tornado seemed to have ended. Gabby expected more damage or even deaths. Looks like they were lucky. The young man asked if Diego was okay and if he was hurt. Diego, in tears, asked his friend if he had seen the huge eye. Gabby initially thought that his friend was in a state of shock, but then Gabriel remembered. That's right. Before he passed out, he saw a huge eye in the center of the tornado, but what was it? Gabby tried to calm his friend down, saying that it just seemed that way to him and that they were safe now. Melissa comforted her crying friend, telling her that the worst was over. Cedric stared out the window with wide eyes. Kevin asked loudly if everything was okay, if no one was hurt. The teacher asked for help, asking if anyone had a working phone. Everyone looked at their phones in surprise. Gabriel remembered that his phone went dead just before the tornado. What happened? The young man looked out the window. The dust had not yet settled and nothing could be seen. Suddenly, Gabby saw a very strange creature. Something that looked like a creepy clown was looking straight at him. What the hell is this? The young man was perplexed. He was hallucinating. Maybe he hit his head hard. Diego, looking out the window, shouted loudly, asking what it was. The boys were stunned when they saw a strange creature outside the window. It seems like others see it too. Is it real? Finally, Kevin cursed and loudly asked what the hell this was. The creature looked at Kevin and said, "This one is interesting." Gabby was stunned. It can talk. The unusual creature laughed loudly, raising its head. It exclaimed that this game would be exciting. A strange creature landed in front of the bus. It welcomed the newly arrived ladies and gentlemen. Having bowed, it politely invited everyone to leave the transport. The school children, with their mouths slightly open, could not move. The stranger barked commandingly at them to come out. The boys moved towards the exit in panic. The bus door opened and the passengers got off. Kevin's girlfriend asked where they were. He replied that he didn't know, but he had a bad feeling. Gabriel noticed that the ground felt strange to the touch. They were not on a road, but then where? Melissa gasped and told everyone to look at the sky. The boys raised their heads and froze. Nobody could understand what the hell was going on. Gabriel smiled. That's interesting. So they are no longer on Earth. The strange creature laughed loudly again. The boys found themselves in the center of some huge structure. There were various monsters sitting in the stands on all sides. The boys looked around in bewilderment. The creature cried out, "Carrion and waste, perverts and sadists, welcome to the arena." The stands roared. The creature introduced himself. He is an orator and will accompany the children on this wonderful day. Children must prepare for a bloody day during which numerous warriors will kill each other for the glory of the entities. The fury and chaos generated by these battles will spread throughout the universe. But first, the speaker offered people and entities a small sacrifice. Leaning over, the speaker asked the teacher what planet they were from. The speaker loudly announced that today in the arena there were people from planet Earth. Diego asked in horror what kind of gifts they were. Were they really going to eat them? The speaker said that they love it when the gifts in the arena resist. Tables appeared next to the school children. Various weapons were laid out on the tables. The speaker announced that humans would try to survive in a battle with one of their races. The spectators shouted with delight. They were waiting for the fight. The doors swung open and a noise was heard. The boys looked at their opponents in horror. The enemies of people will be the most disgusting and cruel race in space. A horde of frenzied Lenidians, known as Goblins, rushed towards the people. The girl asked Kevin what kind of monsters they were. Kevin shouted for everyone to grab their weapons quickly. Gabriel smiled as the tension began to build. Armed goblins rushed at the frightened schoolchildren. The boys rushed around the arena in panic. Gabriel told Diego to get ready. Suddenly, Diego grabbed his fragile friend and dragged him along. Gabi swung his legs and asked what Diego was doing. The teacher shouted at the children to run to the bus faster. But the big goblin will shout that this will not happen. The next second, he pierced the teacher with his sword. The monsters caught the boys and killed them with pleasure. Human blood flowed like a river. Several people, led by Kevin, actively fought off the goblins. Kevin's friend closed her eyes in fear and killed the monster that ran up to her. Kevin praised her, saying it was a good job. The monsters picked off the school children one by one and killed them. Many were unable to resist. Diego dragged Gabi behind a rock and covered his face with his hands. Gabriel was indignant. He didn't have time to take the weapon. Diego panicked and dragged him away. The only thing he has is a screwdriver. Looking at Diego, Gabriel decided that his friend was in a panic and would be of no use. But if Gabi joins Kevin's group, his chances of survival will increase. The guys are fighting desperately and have already killed many monsters. And Diego should stay here, in the shelter. Suddenly, Diego stopped shaking and stared somewhere. Gabi followed his friend's gaze. He looked at Melissa running away from the monsters. Gabriel wondered if the girl always ran so fast. Suddenly, Melissa stepped into a pool of blood. A classmate slipped and fell. The goblin had already raised his sword over her. Another second, and she would be finished. Suddenly, Diego rushed towards the monster with a cry of no. Gabriel didn't understand what happened to his friend. Where did Diego suddenly get his courage from? He flew up to the monster and dealt it a crushing blow with his fist. Seeing how far the goblin flew from the blow, Diego was confused. What did he just do, and when did he become so strong? But with his size, Diego shouldn't have been that fast. Two more goblins rushed towards Diego and Melissa. Gabriel shouted at us to jump as high as we could. The classmates turned to the young man in unison. They pushed off and jumped. The boys were terrified. They found themselves unexpectedly high up. Grabbing a screwdriver, Gabriel rushed into battle. He pierced one monster's carotid artery. The guy stopped. He needed to get more weapons. Gabi kicked the sword out of the goblin's clutches. Meanwhile, the guys smoothly descended to the surface of the arena. Diego asked what the hell just happened. Gabriel replied that they seemed to be stronger here than they were on Earth, perhaps because of the gravity or the atmosphere. The young man smiled, and goblins ran towards him. With great pleasure, he cut off one's head. The second one had his paw cut off with a sword. He then cut the wounded goblin in half. The next goblin was cut from head to toe. Diego and Melissa looked at Gabriel with their mouths open. Soon, all the nearby goblins were killed. Finally, Diego asked when Gabi had become a damn ninja. He put his hand on his friend's shoulder. The young man's green eyes flashed. He turned around abruptly, seriously scaring Diego. Gabriel handed Diego the sword, telling him to take it. He told his classmates to arm themselves. If they want to survive, they must do what he says. In the middle of a huge arena, there was a bus and a fierce battle was going on. The monsters were pleased. It was quite a sight. Diego, Melissa, and Gabriel hid behind a rock. The young man asked if they could see Kevin's group on the other side of the arena. These creatures are afraid to attack because there are many of them and they are armed. Monsters prefer to attack individuals. If they want to survive, they need to join Kevin's gang. Gabby suggested running through the arena in a straight line, avoiding fights if possible. The young man asked if they were ready. Diego replied that he was with Gabriel. The boys grabbed their weapons and ran towards their classmates. A tall goblin blocked their way. Gabriel, without stopping, cut the enemy in half, shouting for the boys to keep running. Suddenly, Diego saw a fight nearby. The monsters were killing their classmates. A little more and the girls will die under the blows of the goblins. This picture caused a fit of anger in the young man. Diego gritted his teeth. Gabby told him not to get involved in fights. But then one of the girls shouted for them to help them. The goblin had already raised his sword over her. Suddenly, Diego grabbed the goblin by the paw. Usually timid, Diego cursed angrily. The monsters, clenching their teeth, looked angrily at the man. The young man screamed and tore off the goblin's paw in which he held the weapon. Gabriel and Melissa turned to Diego. He crushed the heads of 2 monsters, screaming for those filthy scum to die. The enraged guy shouted that he would kill all the goblins. Gabi was surprised by such strength. Diego lost his temper. He didn't know that his friend was capable of such cruelty. But the guy attracted too much attention, and their plan was in jeopardy. There are too many goblins. They will overwhelm them with numbers. But if he and Melissa leave him, they can get to the others. Melissa turned and ran towards Diego, shouting to Gabby that they had to help him. Gabriel cursed. Why did he have to go help the girls? This attracted the rest of the monsters. And then the thought flashed through the young man's head that maybe this was for the best. He shouted loudly to all his classmates to listen to him. If they are still able to fight and want to survive, let them join them. At this time, the goblin wounded Melissa. Gabriel immediately jumped up and killed the enemy. He asked the girl if she was okay. She said everything was fine. Gabby rushed around the battlefield, killing monsters left and right. There was already a mountain of corpses around them, but the enemies kept coming. The guy cursed. No one cared. The rest were saving their asses, taking advantage of the fact that these frogs had switched to them. Gabriel assumed that this would happen, and he should have done the same. Nobody wants to risk their life for others. It is not rational. It looks like the 3 of them are on their own. Not even that, Gabriel is on his own. The young man slipped. Another second and it would all be over. He will probably die and meet his mother. Blood spurted. Gabriel was still alive, albeit covered in blood. In front of him was Kevin. At the last second, he killed the monster. Gritting his teeth, Kevin apologized for taking so long. The young man loudly asked his classmates what they would do. They should all go out and fight. Kevin told everyone to find weapons for themselves, take stones, and even fight with their bare hands. If they want to go home and see their parents, then they attack. The goblins did not expect such pressure from people. Blades flashed. The goblins died one after another. The arena speaker burst out laughing. Wow, today was going to be full of surprises. The monsters in the stands rejoiced. The spectacle delighted them. Contrary to expectations, the parasites from the earth won. The armed men, having gathered together, held a circular defense. Kevin asked what now. They will send them home. But the speaker announced a second round. He asked cryptically if the people would survive this battle. The doors swung open and a giant monster appeared on the threshold. The boys cursed each other when they saw a new enemy. The school children were terrified when a giant troll came out against them. The teenagers barely reached his knee. How to defeat such a monster? The speaker laughed. He knew everyone would like it. This is a troll warrior from the moon of the planet Sko. They called him Skarg the Crusher. Skarg is one of the favorites in the D-League. He has entertained everyone very well in the first 2 games, and this is his 3rd and final mandatory game. If he wins, the entities will allow him to move up to the top league, where he can earn honor, glory, and freedom. Or he can leave the arena to continue his life as a loser. The stands actively supported the troll. The speaker asked what the fighter himself thought, and the troll growled threateningly. The battle leader exclaimed that they could begin. The spectators were pleased. They were thirsty for blood. Skarg looked at the handful of small people. They seemed so insignificant to him. The guys were talking among themselves. The troll is so huge, what should they do? I wonder if they can at least hurt it. Kevin said that they would all attack together, just like before. But Gabriel said that was a bad plan. A troll could kill several with one blow. There are more guys. They are small and fast. If they disperse, he will have to run. When he gets tired, they will kill him. Kevin asked if Gabby was sure about her plan. Gabby asked Kevin to trust him. This was their best chance. One of the guys asked the boys to think faster. The troll was already heading towards the people. Kevin cursed and shouted for everyone to run away quickly. The teenagers scattered in all directions. But one, as if spellbound, stood in place and looked at the approaching troll. The monster dealt a terrible blow to the confused boy. Diego cursed and asked his friend if they had done the right thing. The troll raised his paw, blood dripping from his huge brass knuckles. A bloody mess remained where the young man had just stood. The troll's eyes flashed and he growled. There was no point in running away. The giant rushed after the teenagers. Kevin yelled at the boys to keep running. The boys ran as fast as they could. Skarg tried to hit them, but missed every time. The small and nimble boys constantly heard blows behind them. But the boys and girls dodged. Diego couldn't believe it. It was working. Gabby noticed that the troll was slowing down. Skarg stopped, breathing heavily. The enraged troll growled menacingly. He shouted that he was angry at the pathetic bugs and, clenching his fists, swung. Kevin said their enemy was losing patience. He was desperate. Gabriel was right. Skarg clenched his fists and growled as if gathering all his strength. Gathering his strength, the troll struck the arena. A wave of enormous force knocked the teenagers off their feet. Gabriel tried to slow down, thrusting his sword into the ground. The wave also hit the stunned spectators in the stands. The frightened speaker flew back, holding his hat. The ground in the arena cracked under Skarg's powerful blow. Kevin asked, confused, what the hell was going on? He asked his friends if they were okay. Fiona said that she thought she had broken her leg. The young man quickly bandaged his girlfriend's leg with his shirt. Mechi was still unconscious. The troll said with a grin that earthlings don't run anymore. Fiona looked at the approaching giant with fear. The troll walked towards Kevin and his friend Fiona. Grabbing the weapon, Kevin said that he would rather die in battle. Fiona tried to stop him. He looked tenderly at the girl and said that everything would be fine. Kevin stared at the evil giant with wide eyes. Suddenly he smiled. It couldn't get any worse. Skarg had already swung his terrifying knuckle duster at the couple. Suddenly Kevin heard the enemy's angry growl. It turned out that Gabriel was able to climb onto the troll and hit him in the face. Gabi gritted his teeth. It looked like he had made a terrible mistake. Everyone was shocked by their classmate's courage. The troll shook his head and threw the young man off of himself. Gabriel flew off the huge enemy with the weapon in his hands. The spectators in the stands froze. It seemed the creatures had begun to root for the man. Suddenly the troll laughed. Scratching the bruised area, Skarg said, "The earthling is finally fighting." The troll added that the earthling was so funny. Gabriel scolded himself, calling himself an idiot. Now this monster will focus only on him. But at least now Gabi knows what can hurt the monster. Pushing off the ground, the young man quickly ran towards the troll. Gritting his teeth, Skarg decided to kill the annoying man with his fist. But the guy was too quick, and the fist landed right next to him. Gabriel told himself to stay focused. The troll struck blow after blow, but always missed. Gabi slashed at the giant's paw with his sword. After all, he had the same weak points as everyone else. But its places are much larger, which means they are easier to hit. Having received a wound, Skarg became even more angry, but Gabi did not make a deep enough cut. Diego said that they should help Gabi. Kevin told Fiona that he couldn't leave Gabi alone against that thing. Taking the sword, Kevin also ran towards Skarg. Clenching his fists, Diego rushed to help his friend. The troll didn't pay attention to anyone. He was trying to kill Gabriel. Skarg growled menacingly and swung his fist with the brass knuckles. Fire was shooting out of Gabi's eyes. He was taking a big risk. The troll struck with all his might, raising clouds of dust. Kevin cursed loudly, trying to stay on his feet. Diego called Gabriel in desperation. The troll, realizing that he had missed, struck blow after blow at the arena. But Gabi had already managed to climb back onto the enemy. This time, the young man decided to gouge out the giant's eye. The young man struck the troll with his sword. Feeling the pain, the troll shook his head to throw off the insolent fellow. Having fallen from a height, Gabriel hit the arena several times. Finally, he stopped. The guy felt that his whole body hurt. Blood was oozing from numerous cuts, but I had to get up. The angry troll walked slowly towards Gabriel. The young man cursed. He didn't expect this to happen. Skarg laughed. The earthling is very funny. The troll watched as, despite his wounds, his little enemy rose to his feet again. The giant did not expect the earthling to resist so stubbornly. The young man felt that he had several fractures and that he had no weapon in his hands. Skarg moved steadily closer to the teenager. Gabi sighed heavily, but overcoming the pain, he rose to his feet. The guy thought bitterly that it looked like he had screwed up this time. The giant enemy was already very close, and then Unexpectedly for everyone, a laugh burst from Gabriel's lips. Everyone was stunned. This guy is laughing in the face of the enemy. The troll shuddered. This guy looked at him and laughed. The spectators in the stands fell silent and, with their mouths open, looked at the strange fighter. Skarg moaned in confusion, and Gabriel continued to have fun. His whole face was covered in blood, but his eyes sparkled amazingly. Two enemies, huge and small, stood opposite each other. Gabby thought it was all very exciting. He is about to be killed by a monster to amuse the other monsters. At that moment, for the first time in her life, Gabby was overcome with mad, uncontrollable laughter. Perhaps now he has the answer to the question he has been asking himself all his life. The young man's thoughts were interrupted by a deafening blow dealt by the troll. The guy jumped up and took out his only remaining weapon, a screwdriver. Gathering his last strength, the young man threw a screwdriver into the troll's eye. Skarg roared and Gabriel pierced his eye. Landing at the troll's feet, Gabby thought that it didn't really matter who he was, a saint or a madman. He took a spear. He needed to finish off the enemy. Having jumped onto the giant Skarg, the young man took aim. He thrust his spear into the enemy's neck, piercing him right through. This battle gave Gabriel indescribable pleasure. The mortally wounded troll staggered. Watching the enemy he had defeated fall, Gabby thought it was time to be who he was. In the center of the arena lay a huge troll killed by a man. The speaker exclaimed, "This is incredible, an Earthling has won this match." The stands exploded. Everyone was shouting, some enthusiastically, some angrily, and only one spectator was calm. The cloaked alien said with a smile, "That's interesting." The huge arena began to move, and an unimaginable noise arose. Gabby looked around in confusion. Did he really win? Did he kill the troll? A delighted Diego ran up to his friend. Gabby was able to defeat that thing alone. He is really strong. Suddenly, the guy saw Gabriel smiling. Gabby replied that he killed a troll with his bare hands, and it was amazing. The young man's eyes rolled back, and his wounds made themselves known. The guy swayed and lost consciousness. Diego rushed to him. The guys were worried because Gabby was hit by a monster and suffered serious injuries. Robot medics appeared in the arena and asked him to move away from the wounded fighter. Soon, all the schoolchildren's fractures and bruises were healed. After examining Gabby, the robot concluded that his organs were damaged and that he needed to be urgently placed in a recovery capsule. Diego asked if his friend would survive, but the robot asked him to step aside and not interfere with the patient's evacuation. The young man was placed in a strange, transparent box. 4 droids carefully carried the teenager out of the arena. The boys watched their classmate with worried glances. The speaker urged survivors not to worry and to gather around for the announcement of the results. The schoolchildren didn't understand what these results were. The battle host announced that it was time to find out how many essence points would be awarded to the brave fighters. Spectators in the stands began to actively vote. The speaker was confident that the sadistic entities would certainly reward a bloodbath of such high quality. The silent schoolchildren waited for the results. Soon a screen appeared with portraits and the number of points. The entities were impressed by the performance of the new fighters, 5 of whom received more than 1,000 points. The speaker was surprised. One of the people received as many as 3,000 points, which is unheard of for a first fight. The host was confident that Gabriel White had a bright future in the arena. Melissa waved her hand, getting the presenter's attention. The speaker asked the young lady what was the matter. Melissa timidly noted that there were 16 names on the screen, but there were only 15 of them. Cedric is not among the fighters. The presenter thanked the young lady. It was so stupid of him. The speaker, holding out his bloody hand, exclaimed that he had almost forgotten about it. Indeed, we need to get the 16th. The presenter flew up to the pile of corpses and pointed his hand at it. Suddenly, the corpses began to move. Soon, a frightened Cedric flew out of there. The speaker grabbed him by the neck and invited everyone to look at this rat. The boys looked at their classmate in surprise. The presenter asked if he probably thought he was smarter than the others because he hid under the corpses and thought they wouldn't see him. Throwing Cedric into the group, the speaker added that running from a fight was not an option for long-term survival. They need to fight, and maybe they can earn enough points to buy their freedom, otherwise they won't be able to escape the arena. Kevin asked how many points were needed to be released. The speaker replied that only a small amount was needed. After a short pause, he clarified, only 100,000 points. Seeing the boys' elongated faces, the speaker burst out laughing. Diego was horrified. He had just survived this madness and received all 1,200 points. The teenagers were stunned. It was too much. Suddenly, Kevin turned to the big-mouthed man with a smile. Taking the sword in his hands, the guy said that they would achieve these points in the shortest possible time. The presenter watched the teenager with interest. Kevin said he could bring in the next monster and he would beat the crap out of him. Hugging the young man, the speaker said that he liked his growl. A frightened Fiona tried to stop her friend. But the people's shift is over for today. They need to follow the droids. They will take them to the rest area and answer all their questions. After slapping Kevin on the butt, the host said that they would see each other soon. The teenagers walked cautiously towards the robot that was waiting for them. The doors opened, letting the boys through. The droid said that the people had nothing to fear. This battle zone was located in an artificially created spatial enclave. The portal will transfer them to the normal plane, where the recreation area is located. Diego asked what was going on. Were they in a Stargate? Gabriel's wounds soon healed completely, and he slept. The room where he was located was very reminiscent of an ordinary hospital ward. The young man opened his eyes and screamed. The guy clutched his heart and cursed. It was painful. The strange spectator in the hood grinned. He was already awake. That was much better. An alien stood in front of Gabby. He had something like a cigar in his mouth. He offered to talk. Gabby remembered that while he was unconscious, he saw his mother. He was sure that he had died, but his mother said that he would live. Mom reached out to him and asked if he had started killing again. The young man stuttered and replied that he had to do it. Mom asked, and it was nice. The confused young man asked what she was talking about. But then the devil appeared instead of my mother and asked if it was pleasant for him to kill. After this, the young man woke up in fear. He didn't understand what was happening to him. Gabi jumped out of bed and shouted at the stranger, asking who he was and where the others were. The man asked him to calm down. His friends were in the recreation area. Gabriel asked where he was. This is a treatment center. That giant Gabi was seriously injured. The young man asked the stranger who he was. The man introduced himself. His name was Caligan, and he was his new best friend. Caligan added conciliatorily that the guy had had a hard day and didn't know where they had ended up, but he was ready to answer all his questions. Blowing out a stream of smoke, Caligan asked the young man if he was hungry. Meanwhile, the boys moved to the recreation area. The droid asked everyone not to disperse. They were approaching their block. All sorts of creatures were scurrying around. Fiona asked if this was some kind of prison, but there were no bars or guards. Soon the robot said that they had arrived. This is a block specifically for their group. It has bedrooms, warehouses, and terminals. Housing on the top floor, sanitary facilities in the basement. The doors of the block quietly opened. The robot gave the kids an hour to get acquainted. Then he will tell them how the arena works. Looking out the window, Gabriel thought it was incredible. Caligan explained that the tower that Gabby sees is the place where they were before. The portal brought them here. This is Caligan's favorite view of the city. The droid announced that their table was ready. Gabriel was surprised to see a hamburger on his plate. He was very surprised where earthly food came from on this planet. Seeing Gabby's surprise, Caligan smiled. He saw on the internet that this was a traditional dish from his world. The chef is a friend of Caligan's, and it's real meat, not some synthesized crap. Instinct told Gabby not to trust this man. He was trying too hard. The young man asked what Caligan wanted from him. The man swallowed the wine. He silently put down the glass and looked at the guy. Caligan asked what the level of civilization was in Gabby's world, and whether they were exploring outer space. It turned out that today, the guy saw his first aliens. The teenagers found themselves in an empty space, located at the crossroads of universes, at the crossroads of realities and time. They were chosen by the Great Selector to fight in the arena. He chooses creatures with great warrior potential, who can offer the entities the most beautiful fight. Diego whispered, "It was him, the big eye, so he didn't dream it." Gabi asked why the entities wanted them to fight. While eating a hamburger, Caligan replied that it was probably for fun. Violence, struggle, and death are an integral part of almost all forms of life in space. Perhaps the entities consider violence to be the purest expression of life. Everything in this world revolves around battles in the arena, be it the economy or social rating. Each person must fight 3 battles. Then they can leave the arena and become a slave or continue fighting to buy their freedom. Kevin suggested we talk about the shitty option. Freedom costs 100,000 points. But with the points, they can buy clothes, food, weapons, equipment. And most importantly, you can buy resurrection with points. It costs about the same as citizenship. Few people manage to score 100,000 points. mainly because fighters waste them ineptly. The fighters who succeed are those who have sponsors. Caligan smiled broadly and asked if Gabby knew who he was. The young man asked what the sponsors get out of this. Gabby's interlocutor explained that he would receive large commissions from viewers' bets and even more if he won. Caligan saw the guy in the arena, saw the expression on his face. It's a killer look, Gabby likes it all. When he killed Skarg, he was literally in ecstasy. Gabriel has enormous potential, and rookies like him are extremely rare. Caligan promised to make Gabby a star of the arena. He would have prestige, wealth, and power. The man asked what Gabriel would say. The droid told the boys how they could use the glasses. Mechi volunteered. The robot leaned over and called the terminal. At the same second, a glowing round window separated from the floor. The droid told the surprised boy to stick his hand through the terminal. Mechi obediently put his hand through the window. The robot explained that it now had access to his profile data. A profile screen lit up in front of the guy, and the robot credited him with 100 points. The information was immediately reflected in the profile. Diego exclaimed, "This is just like in RPG games." Now Mechi needed to say the word store. The guy obeyed. An online store screen appeared, and the young man said the word food. A menu with various dishes appeared in front of the schoolboy. The droid offered the guy to choose something worth 100 points. As soon as Mechi pressed the button, a roasted leg appeared in front of him. Kevin asked where the food came from. After biting into the dish, the guy said that this thing was really good. The droid said it was roast Malkian pork, and Mechi immediately spat out the piece. Now the kids know the basics of using their glasses. Terminals are available almost anywhere in this building. The teenagers immediately started calling up terminals to try it out. Diego was delighted, it really works. The robot said that they had some free time until the next fight. After the droid left, the guys each went about their own business. Kevin said petulantly that he was bored. He asked where everyone was. Fiona replied. They were probably sleeping. But most were traumatized by what happened and simply cried in their rooms. Kevin was irritated by these weaklings. He needed to find a way to get out of here. Most of them realized that they had little chance of getting the necessary points. Kevin said they were free to walk around and buy guns. This means they can try to escape from here. You just need to wait for the right moment. Suddenly, Kevin heard Gabby's voice, saying that he could forget about it. Gabby and Caligan entered the Earthlings' block. Caligan noticed that the guys had a long tongue. Diego and Melissa were very happy about Gabriel's return. Caligan left the young man with his friends. A joyful Diego lifted his friend into the air. Caligan knew that few of Gabby's friends would survive what lay ahead. Kevin asked Gabby what kind of smurf it was, but the boy asked to call everyone else. Surely everyone already knows where they are and what kind of world this is. Caligan is the sponsor who came to recruit Gabriel. He proposed to Gabby, and the guy took the initiative to make a counteroffer. Kevin asked, so Gabriel made a deal with the enemy. Gabby replied that this deal could help them all. If they survive the next 2 battles, Caligan will sponsor everyone. Those who survive the next battle will not be separated from the group. They will all remain together. Those who want to stop fighting will work for Caligan and will be treated well. Diego asked what Caligan would get in exchange for this. Gabby said that in exchange for this, he would fight exclusively for Caligan. Kevin muttered, Gabby thinks they're all weak. He pushed Gabby away and exclaimed, this is all nonsense. They just have to figure out a way to escape. Gabby said again that this was not possible right now. An angry Kevin asked why this was impossible. Gabby asked, and he wasn't interested in why there were no bars, no guards, no handcuffs here. Gabriel called the terminal. The young man asked Kevin that even if they escaped, how would they return to Earth? Kevin blurted out that they would steal a spaceship or use a portal. Gabby asked the terminal how to get off this planet. The device responded, the only way to leave was through a wormhole called the Mouth of Eternity on a powered starship. Kevin didn't back down. They would find a way to steal one of the ships. There were probably coordinates to Earth on board. Gabriel asked the terminal when the next vortex would open. The Mouth of Eternity will reappear in approximately 3 years, 9 months, for 21 days. The boys were horrified when they heard this. Kevin's legs gave way and he fell to his knees. The young man, drenched in sweat, whispered, no way. Gabby calmly said that no matter what they did, they would have to live in this place for about 4 years. They are not handcuffed or locked up because there is no need for that. Because this whole world is a prison. Kevin couldn't believe it was true. One of the guys asked what to do. They wouldn't live that long. Gabby understood that this announcement would hit the boys' morale. However, he was surprised by Kevin's reaction. Gabby thought he was stronger. Gabriel suggested that everyone calm down and listen to him. He said they had enough time to study everything and prepare an escape plan. But first, they had to survive in the arena. Their next battle is in 3 weeks. They need to prepare well. Not everyone will get out of here alive, but he will try to increase those chances. Kevin was indignant, but Gabby thought he was the boss. Fiona tried to calm her friend down. The guy shouted that Gabby was manipulating everyone like sheep. The teenagers were confused and silent. Diego exclaimed that it was thanks to Gabriel that they were still alive. Why would he lie? Kevin noticed that Gabby had returned with a strange guy and a plan to save everyone. Yeah, Gabby just wants to save her own ass. Kevin's classmates looked at him with wide eyes. He asked Gabby if he died. The deal with the alien would still be valid. It seems Kevin is not as stupid as he seems. He's thought of everything, and it's annoying. Kevin insisted that this plan was a pretext to prolong Gabby's life. The boys began to make excited noise. Cedric asked if Kevin was exaggerating, but the boys shouted at Cedric to continue hiding under the corpses. That blue guy is only interested in Gabby. If he dies, why would he fulfill the terms of the deal? Gabriel decided to end this discussion. He suggested that Kevin calm down. It was clear that he was scared. The guy immediately roared and hit Gabby. The young man smiled. Clever Kevin, he took the bait. He yelled at Gabby, asking who the idiot thought he was. Gabriel dodged the blow and grabbed Kevin's arm. The next second, the tall guy flew back to the wall of the compartment. Kevin stood up, cursing. He was ready to rush at Gabriel again. But then Diego stood between them and demanded that Kevin stop. The young man thought that this was even better. The guy yelled at the fat guy to get out of the way, or he thought he was good enough for Kevin. But Diego had changed a lot that day. He replied that he was a great fit for Kevin. Fiona and Mechi stood next to Kevin. The others jumped up from their seats in excitement. Gabriel stepped forward. He said that everyone was tired from the crazy day and suggested that they call it a night and go to bed. Fiona urged Kevin to get at least some sleep. The guys began to slowly disperse. Silence reigned in compartment 99. True, sometimes you could hear someone screaming in their sleep. Gabby didn't know what to do with Kevin. The young man couldn't get rid of him. The group needed his strength. Gabriel cursed. He was thinking too much. He needed to clear his head. The young man touched the panel to open the door. The night starry sky was visible through the window. The young man leaned against the wall and looked at the unusual picture. He still couldn't believe that he was on the other side of the universe. Suddenly he heard someone sobbing. Some girl came out of her room crying. Swaying, the classmate headed towards the window onto the street. Gabriel recognized Melissa, but what was she doing? Streams of tears ran down the girl's cheeks. Her eyes were inexpressibly sad. And then the young man realized that she was really going to. Melissa went up to the window and opened it. Long red hair flashed in the doorway. The girl's body rushed downwards. Gabriel shouted at Melissa not to dare do that. Pushing off the floor, the young man rushed after her. In a couple of jumps, he found himself at the window and jumped after it. In a split second, Gabby managed to catch up with the desperate girl. He grabbed her, trying to slow her down and soften her fall. They fell to the ground, raising clouds of dust. Melissa fell on Gabriel and was therefore not hurt at all. But Gabby felt pain. It's good that they are stronger here. On Earth, they would already be dead. Melissa looked at Gabriel in surprise. He asked what the hell Melissa was doing, what she was even thinking. And it's stupid to hope that she could kill herself from such a height. Melissa's body shook. Crying, she asked him to forgive her. She doesn't know what came over her, but she's so scared. Gabriel wondered why he was so upset. He couldn't understand what was happening to him. Gabby and Melissa returned to their living quarters. He took her to her room and told her to try to get some rest. They will see each other again tomorrow. Melissa timidly took Gabriel's hand. She asked him to stay with her a little longer. Looking at his upset classmate, he agreed. Gabby asked the girl why she tried to commit suicide. She replied that she simply didn't know what else to do. Today was the worst day of her life. She had never been so scared. She doesn't know how to fight and will die anyway, so she wanted to end it right away. The young man partly understood her intention. Melissa's eyes filled with tears, and she said she couldn't stand this feeling. Gabriel didn't understand what the feeling was. The girl said quietly, feeling guilty. It's a painful, incredible feeling, and it will never go away. Gabby said that Melissa couldn't blame herself. Those monsters were going to kill them. She had no other choice. The girl said that it was not only about that. Gabriel couldn't understand what she was talking about. Why is she so upset? If not the monsters, then who? Did she really kill one of her own? The girl again remembered their first terrible fight. She and her friend were running away from armed goblins. Sophie was lagging behind a little. The monsters were already breathing down their necks. And suddenly Sophie stepped on a stone and twisted her legs. The girl screamed and fell to the ground. The friend shouted for Melissa to help her. The girl stopped and walked up to Sophie. The girl stood up and said she had sprained her ankle. Melissa told her to lean on it. The pursuers were already almost 2 steps away from the girls. Sophie cursed and asked what they should do. 2 friends stood in the arena, confused. Sophie asked Melissa to hurry. They had to run. Suddenly, Melissa's face changed. Sophie asked what was wrong with her. She squeezed Sophie's hand tightly with one hand. With her other hand, Melis wrapped her arm around her friend's back. Leaning towards Sophie, Melissa quietly said she was sorry. Sophie didn't understand what her best friend was talking about, and Melissa pushed the girl with all her might towards the approaching goblins. Melissa gritted her teeth and closed her eyes. Sophie couldn't believe her friend's betrayal. A couple of minutes later, the goblin's axe fell on the girl's neck. Dying, covered in blood, Sophie looked after Melissa with tears in her eyes, and she, clenching her teeth, ran away while the goblins tortured her friend's body. A new day has dawned at the arena. Opening his eyes, Gabriel wondered if it was already morning. He looked at Melissa sleeping next to him in confusion. The young man did not immediately understand how he got there. Soon Melissa woke up too. The girl blushed deeply and asked Gabriel to forgive her. Opening the door, he replied that everything was fine and that he would go get dressed. The young man felt that he was very tired. Diego exclaimed in surprise, "So Gabby was here." He was worried and knocked on his friend's door in the morning, but he didn't answer. And then it dawned on Diego that Gabriel had left Melissa's room, and it seemed they had spent the night together. Gabriel objected, saying he had just gone to see if she was okay, and Diego suggested meeting for breakfast. Looking at his clothes, Gabby sighed. They were ruined after the fight. He called the terminal. "We need to see what they offer in terms of everyday wear. You need to spend as little as possible." And then Gabriel saw that there were free clothes. That was great. He immediately chose ordinary civilian free clothes. The system offered to equip the buyer. At that very second, clothes appeared on the young man's body. He was delighted. This technology is truly amazing. Having finished with his clothes, Gabriel went to have breakfast. Seeing his friend in new clothes, Diego's mouth opened in surprise. Gabby waved to the guys and apologized for the delay. His friends vied with each other to ask him where he got such cool clothes. The guy explained that it could be requested through the terminal. Having learned that they could get free clothes, the friends also used the terminal. Now we could have breakfast in peace. Diego was surprised. That's all Gabby was going to eat. Melissa didn't touch her food. The girl said she had no appetite. Gabriel reminded them that they had to save points. How much Diego had eaten yesterday and how many points he had left. The guy replied sheepishly that he had 600 points left. Kevin pushed Cedric away, yelling at him to get out of the way. Everyone turned around at the noise. Cedric was thrown to the side by the powerful blow. Kevin yelled at the coward to get out of his way. Diego whispered, "Here comes the trouble." Kevin glared at Gabriel as he passed. He calmly met his classmate's gaze. The guy frowned, but this time he remained silent. Kevin suggested to his friends to get out of there. Everyone watched Kevin's campaign in silence. Melissa said she felt sorry for poor Cedric. Everyone blamed him. Diego said it was no surprise. He used his friends to survive. People like that are real scum. Melissa winced and thought of Sophie. The girl answered Diego thoughtfully. Maybe he was right. Gabriel asked the boys if they wanted to go for a walk outside. After all, they are in another world. It would be a shame not to look around. When they went outside, the teenagers looked around in surprise. It really was a different world. Melissa still couldn't believe it. She asked the boys if they had seen how many different species there were. Looking around, Gabby realized that they were in a slum, apparently inhabited by prisoners like themselves. Melissa didn't understand why food was sold on the street when it could be bought in the terminal. Gabriel explained that the food in the terminals is synthetic, but this is simply fresh. The girl thought, this is like organic and industrial food. Gabby carefully asked the girl if she felt better. She smiled and said that she would not try to commit suicide again. Diego called out to his friends, saying that something was going on there. Indeed, a crowd of aliens had gathered nearby. They were shouting that they wanted blood, calling for someone to be killed. The boys squeezed into the crowd to see what was going on. Suddenly, the school children saw Kevin among the fighters. He was covered in blood, could barely stand on his feet, but continued to push himself. The large alien noticed that Kevin looked rather tired and disappointed. Gabriel cursed, "What the hell was this?" Night fell again in the arena. Fiona fell asleep, nestled next to Kevin. But the young man could not sleep. He again remembered their first fight, the death of his classmates. I remembered how Gabriel jumped on a huge troll. Kevin clearly remembered the final, fatal blow that Gabby had dealt. And I also remembered Gabriel's crazy eyes and happy smile. Kevin felt uneasy and cursed. In the morning, Mechi asked Kevin what he was going to do. Mechi talked about Gabriel's plan, whether they would follow it. Kevin replied, "This freak uses them to increase his chances of survival." Fiona reminded that it was Gabriel who saved everyone in the first battle. The girl knew that Kevin didn't like it, but it was a fact. And it didn't matter whether this plan served his interests, because they were the same for everyone. Kevin said he didn't like the guy. There was something fishy about him. The expression Gabby had in the arena, Kevin had seen it before. He couldn't be trusted. Kevin insisted that they were stronger than the others and could handle it themselves. Fiona asked what guarantee there was that they would not be separated after surviving the battles, which was the whole point of Gabriel's plan. Kevin is fixated on the fact that he's using them, his misplaced ego preventing him from seeing the bigger picture. Gabriel came up with this plan to ensure that he would remain with the strongest. He needs Kevin's campaign as much as they need him. So it doesn't matter whether Kevin trusts him or not. As long as they survive and stay together, that's all that matters. The guy thoughtfully replied that Fiona was right. The pleased girl said that now Kevin would go make peace with Gabriel and apologize to him. But the young man indignantly refused. But Fiona was very persistent. The company returned to their compartment. Kevin reluctantly went to look for Gabby. Kevin ran into Cedric again. The guy took his anger out on him, barking at him to get out of the way. Gabriel, Diego, and Melissa turned around to see another brawl. Kevin tossed the weak Cedric aside. Kevin clenched his fists and screamed at the fucking coward to get out of his way. Diego whispered. Troubles came again. Kevin looked at Gabby. He didn't know how to talk to him. Gabriel looked calmly at his classmate. Fiona kept her eyes on her friend and Gabriel. Kevin turned and headed towards the exit, getting ready to go outside. Gabriel watched him go silently. Fiona reminded her friend that he needed to talk to Gabriel, but Kevin replied that he needed to take a walk to calm his nerves. Once outside, the boys looked around with interest. Mechi asked what kind of hellhole this was. Fiona didn't like the place. Unexpectedly, Kevin laughed. He just realized that they might be the first people to visit an alien world. Mechi and Fiona thought about it, but this is really true. 2 days ago, they were future unemployed losers, and now they are space explorers. It's funny. Fiona whispered that she would never understand the humor between these two. And then the guys saw a crowd of aliens in front of them. They were shouting something excitedly. The boys pushed their way into the crowd to find out what was going on. 2 fighters were fighting in the center of the circle. One of them fell to the ground after being hit in the jaw. The audience murmured approvingly. Kevin was surprised. These were street fights. Mechi admired the winner. The organizer, who looked like a huge crab, declared that it was a wonderful fight. They have a deserved winner. He wins 300 points. The boys were surprised that they could earn points outside the arena. The crab asked who would have the courage to challenge the winner. Suddenly, Kevin stepped forward, declaring that he would do it. To participate, a young man must bet 150 points. If he wins, he will get his own back and take his opponent's points. Kevin and his opponent stood opposite each other. The young man clenched his teeth. He really wanted to fight. The other fighters seemed to be amused by the small, cocky man. The organizer gave the command to start, and Kevin's opponent ran towards him. Kevin decided to put all his strength into the first strike. As soon as the enemy approached, the guy struck him in the solar plexus. To everyone's surprise, the large fighter fell backwards. The organizer announced the winner. It was Kevin. The young man was pleased. It turned out to be as easy as pie. The crab asked Kevin if he would continue, and he happily agreed. Clenching his fist, he smugly declared that they should bring the next one. The organizer asked who would be the next one to enter the circle. Another competitor came forward, and Kevin easily defeated him. Another alien followed him, and he also lost. Another brawler wanted to fight Kevin. The guy was very happy. He won time after time. Fiona was thrilled. Kevin almost won 1,000 points. The organizer once again asked who would be next. The spectators looked warily at the lizard-like creature. He stepped forward, saying that he would be next. The fans cheered when they saw the lizard. The organizer joyfully exclaimed that Cleo, the record holder for the number of victories in a season, had come out to them. Mehdi became worried. It seemed like this was a famous guy. Kevin noticed that his opponent was quite tall. He needed to be careful. Cleo hissed menacingly. The lizard told the crab that he wanted to bet 500 points on this fight. Fiona was horrified. It was a lot. But Kevin casually agreed to such a bet. Cleo with a bloodthirsty smile at the newcomer. Kevin felt uneasy. He felt the enemy's strength. The organizer gave the signal to start fighting. Kevin decided to attack first so as not to give the enemy time to attack. Cleo waited with a smile for the approaching fighter. The young man clenched his fist for the decisive blow. But suddenly, Kevin felt that the enemy attacked him first. Having received a strong blow, the young man flew back and fell on his back. Fiona and Mehdi were horrified. Kevin cursed. He didn't understand when the lizard managed to hit him. Despite the blow, the boy gritted his teeth and stood up. He rushed at Cleo again, confident that he would still get him. This time, Cleo landed several punches on Kevin. As he fell, the young man cursed, as a lizard does. Kevin noticed that Cleo was hitting him when he wasn't even within reach, and suddenly the boy heard Mehdi calling him. A friend told Kevin that Cleo lengthens arms. The young man understood, so that's what it was. Kevin dodged the unexpected blow in time. The lizard grinned. He wanted to knock the guy out while he was listening to his friend. But Kevin has good reflexes. The young man completely forgot that he was fighting an alien and that anything was possible here. Kevin stubbornly rushed into battle. But now he knew this trick. He hoped to cope with Cleo. The young man dodged the blows, making incredible zigzags. Running up close, Kevin struck Cleo in the stomach. Having received a powerful blow, the lizard gasped and lost its balance. Kevin took advantage of the situation and made a sweep. The guy then kicked the green opponent in the stomach. Cleo flew into the ranks of fans. Kevin's friends were happy he did it, but the young man barked at them to shut up. The fight is not over yet, and the enemy is strong. Cleo, rising to his feet, said that this was not bad at all. The lizard smiled. Now it was his turn to attack. Kevin gritted his teeth. Cleo struck with such force that the boys' insides turned over. Everyone saw that blood was pouring out of Kevin's mouth. Fiona covered her face with her hands in horror. The young man tried to counterattack but missed. But Cleo delivered a precise blow to the young man's face. Kevin fell, raising a cloud of dust. The green lizard growled contentedly. But the guy jumped to his feet again and rushed at his opponent. Burning with anger, the young man tried to hit Cleo, but he constantly dodged. Finally, the lizard hit the guy with its clawed paw. Kevin fell to the ground. The spectators were shouting for Cleo to finish off the kid. They wanted blood. Waking up through the crowd, Gabriel asked what was going on. The young man saw Kevin fighting with an alien. Bleeding, the boy exclaimed that this was not all. Cleo chuckled. Kevin already looked tired. Gabi cursed and asked what it was. Gabriel couldn't understand what Kevin was doing, why he got into a fight. Diego asked what they would do. Gabi replied that there was a referee. It was a duel, not an attack. If the rules here are the same as in the arena, Kevin could die. The guy gathered his last strength and rushed at Cleo again. The green fighter smiled, revealing a row of sharp teeth. He hit the man running up. With his other hand, he struck Kevin hard in the chest. The young man fell helplessly into the dust. This time, he could no longer get up and continue the fight. Cleo told Kevin he fought well. The friends rushed to the guy lying on the ground. The organizer announced that Cleo had won and that he would win 1,000 points. Diego noticed that their classmate was badly hurt. Fiona, with tears in her eyes, begged Kevin to wake up. Mehdi hissed that this green freak would pay for this. The angry boy called out rudely to Cleo. The young man rushed at the winner with his fists. He casually asked if he wanted some too. Cleo laughed, saying he could arrange it without any problem. Mehdi, raising his fist, called the lizard an asshole. Suddenly, Gabriel stood between them, stopping both blows. Cleo stared at the frail man in surprise. Mehdi frowned, displeased with the intrusion. Gabriel told Mehdi to calm down, but he asked if Gabi saw what the green one did to his friend. Gabi told him to shut up and look around. It was a fight according to the rules. If Mehdi continued, he would be lynched. Cleo laughed. The rules of the duel are sacred, and advised the guy to take care of his friend. Gabriel handed Mehdi a syringe-like device that would help Kevin. This injector contains a healing mixture. You need to stick it into his arm or thigh. It should work instantly. Cleo called out to Gabriel. The young man realized that the fighter was addressing him. Cleo asked the boy what his name was. The guy replied that his name was Gabriel. Gabriel quickly followed his friends. Cleo was puzzled how this mosquito stopped his blow with one hand. Interesting guy. Mechi injected the medicine he received from Gabby into Kevin's leg. A couple of seconds later, Kevin screamed, coming to his senses. A delighted Fiona threw herself on her friend's neck, but he couldn't understand what had happened. Finally, it dawned on the young man that he had lost. Gabriel suggested getting out of here quickly. They were interfering with the next battle. Kevin asked what the hell Gabriel was doing here. The aliens looked at the visitors from Earth with interest. The company headed to their living quarters in complete silence. Diego wondered if anyone would say a word until they got home. Gabriel and Kevin walked ahead, neither of them saying a word. Diego was sure that if they came across such a lizard guy in the next fight, they would not survive. Fiona agreed with Diego that they needed to join forces, but first they needed to reconcile the two. The boys all tried to persuade Fiona to use her charm to influence her friend. Kevin, hearing these conversations, was perplexed when they suddenly became friends. Kevin glanced at Gabby. He was still convinced there was something wrong with this guy, but they needed his damn plan. Soon they approached their living quarters. Once inside, both companies headed in their own directions. Suddenly Kevin stopped. After standing there for a while, he finally decided to call out to Gabriel. Gabby heard Kevin calling him. The young man turned around, asking what was the matter. Kevin threw the boy a new injector to replace the used one. Gabby was surprised, but this is a very useful thing. Turning around, Kevin coldly said that they were now even. Diego sighed with relief. He thought that these two would fight again. Melissa said that Kevin has a good heart even though he acts like that. Gabriel walked silently to his room. He pulled up his sleeve. His right arm was blue and very painful. This lizard man broke his arm with one punch. It's amazing. The young man used the injector he had just received. The broken arm immediately began to recover. After a couple of seconds, the guy was able to calmly clench his fist. The fracture had completely healed. Gabriel's eyes lit up. That was great. Gabby dreamed of the devil again. He asked how he was doing. It seemed not as well as he would have liked. The horned one asked if he could ask a question. Why hasn't Gabriel told his friends everything yet? The devil, his eyes flashing, asked why not tell them that Gabby was happy here. The young man opened his eyes. He dreamed about that terrible devil again. He needed to turn off the alarm. And then he remembered. There was no alarm clock here. The guy got out of bed. It was reported that the next fight would take place in 8 days. Gabby's eyes lit up with joy finally. All the guys had already gathered in the common room. They were excited and discussed the news they had received about the battle. Diego and Melissa sat silently at the table. Gabriel saw that everyone was there and suggested they begin. One of the guys asked Gabby what the hell was going on. He said they would have more than 20 days before the fight. The others started making noise, saying that Gabby had lied to them and what to do now. Suddenly, Kevin yelled loudly for everyone to shut up. He called on everyone to pull themselves together. In any case, they must return to the arena no matter how many days it takes. Kevin suggested that everyone stop whining and listen to Gabriel's plan. Gabby looked at Kevin in surprise. This guy regularly surprised Gabriel. Stepping forward, Gabby said that they needed to use the remaining time to increase their chances of survival. They know the date, but they don't know who or what they will have to fight. But they know how to work in a team and know their weaknesses. Suddenly, the young man pointed his finger at a group of schoolchildren and said that they were their weakness. Most of them do not know how to fight and are weak both physically and psychologically. Most of them will die pretty quickly. Diego tried to stop his friend, but Gabby shouted at him to shut up. Diego and the others fell silent. Gabby said that this wasn't a physical education lesson or a friendly competition. The main thing here was to survive. We must honestly admit that they are weak. Gabriel called the terminal and said that he had developed a special strategy. The boys listened attentively to their classmate. Taking up his spear and shield, he said this was what their strategy would be based on, at least in part. Defensive phalanx formation to repel enemy attacks and offensive formation for attacks. This is a very effective formation, especially in a confined space such as an arena. Cedric noticed that the phalanx lacked mobility. One of the guys asked what if they were more comfortable with swords. Gabriel said they were both making the right decisions. The phalanx will be supported by 4 of its best fighters, who will move freely around it. If they go up against a giant, the top 4 will split the phalanx, which will attract the giant's attention while it is surrounded. And then they start all over again using the same strategy. Kevin realized that with this strategy, Gabby, Mechi, Diego, and he would score the most points. Suddenly, Gabriel turned to Kevin. He asked if Kevin would come out for a little demonstration. Kevin, armed with a sword, stood opposite Gabriel with a spear and shield. Gabi explained that Kevin was going to attack him with his sword. The young man said that Kevin could attack at any time. Gabriel smiled, telling Kevin not to be afraid. He would be gentle. The guy was immediately overcome with anger. Cursing, he rushed at his classmate. Gabriel got into a fighting stance, holding out his shield. The boys watched the demonstration with wide eyes. Suddenly, Gabriel's spear was near Kevin's throat. He didn't have time to run up to the enemy before he was stopped. Gabi explained that the advantage of the spear is its length. Kevin clenched his teeth in anger. He instantly deflected the spear with his sword. Kevin lunged at Gabriel, but he covered himself with his shield. He said the shield's advantage was defense. Kevin's punch was obvious but good. Lunging, Gabi said that the shield is also a weapon. He hit Kevin with his shield, sending him flying back. Seeing that his opponent had lost his balance, Gabi used his spear. The young man made a sweep and knocked his opponent off his feet. Kevin yelped and fell to the floor with a thud. Gabriel instantly put his spear to his opponent's throat. The young man asked his classmates who wanted to try. After the weapons demonstration, the guys perked up. Having taken up their weapons, the school children began training. Diego asked if that meant they weren't allowed to use a shield. Mechi added that shields were more practical. Gabriel replied that if they needed shields, let them take them. The four of them should choose what suited them best. Training weapons are provided for free, but combat weapons require points. Diego exclaimed that he barely had a quarter of his points left. Mechi asked how that was possible. Kevin chuckled. He spent it all on food. But Gabi said that everything was fine and took out a Sumerian axe. Handing the weapon to his friend, Gabi said that he took the initiative to buy this axe for Diego. The guy was delighted. This thing is so light. Gabi suggested to his friend that he combine his strength with the reach of this axe. Diego was confused. The axe must have cost a lot, but Gabi reassured him it was one of the cheapest axes. Overwhelmed with emotion, Diego hugged his friend and burst into tears. A screen appeared in front of Diego, asking him to accept the object, the axe. Kevin and Mechi were excitedly discussing the weapons in the warehouse. Diego laughed. The boys found their bliss. Kevin chose the 8th Empire Claymore because he plans to kill enemies by the dozen. Kevin also bought a cool, long coat. Mechi exclaimed that he was a Roronoa Zoro, of course. He could only buy 2 swords, but for a start that was enough. Looking at the happy teenagers, Gabi thought that this wasn't a cosplay competition. Diego asked what weapon Gabriel had chosen. The young man replied that at first he chose an axe. It was very light and cheap. The friends looked at Gabriel in surprise. Mechi noted that it was not very stylish. Gabi added that he also bought several daggers, throwing knives, a chain, smoke, and other accessories. Fiona noticed the boys having fun in their corner. Gabriel asked the girls if there was a problem. Melissa said some people don't have enough points to buy a gun. Fiona added that the guys were the richest, so they would have to buy weapons for the others. Kevin was indignant, but Fiona shamed her friend, telling him not to be greedy. Diego whispered that he was an idiot, wasting his points. Gabi said he had neglected this aspect and promised to do everything he could. Kevin reluctantly agreed to pay for the weapon as well. Gabriel suggested returning to training the troops. A droid closely monitored the preparations. The flying robot hovered above the window of the human living quarters. Having received all the necessary information, the droid flew away. Caligan watched the events through his flying drone. He was pleased. Everything seemed to be going as planned. That was good. The pointy-eared beauty asked Caligan what he was looking at and whether he was no longer interested in her. He apologized to his girlfriend and looks at the growing business. Caligan shouted at the droid to pour them his best bottle. Twilight descended on the city. On the way to the hotel, Caligan entertained the beauty with various stories. And then he saw that they were waiting for him. He told his girlfriend that he would get some fresh air and that she should go up to her room and order whatever she wanted. Caligan waved his hand at the girl in a friendly manner. Noticing 3 thugs, he suggested going into the alley. Soon, the whole company left the busy street. One of the thugs knocked Caligan down. He said the boss didn't want to see Caligan hanging out in fancy establishments when he owed him a pretty penny. Caligan replied that the deadline was far away, and in the meantime, he could do whatever he wanted with his money. The brutes reminded him that it wasn't his money. He had lost a lot due to the defeat of his champion, Skarg. The fight organizer suggested not to spoil this wonderful night. The bandit grinned. They'll just put Caligan's head in order. Blood splashed onto the stone slabs of the pavement. All 3 bandits lay in pools of their own blood. Caligan calmly lit a cigar. He asked me to tell the boss that next time he should send more than 3 clowns who don't even know how to fight. He's a former arena champion. It's just insulting to send such garbage. Laughing, Caligan said that a hot date and a wild night awaited him. On a distant planet, preparations were being made for a significant event. Bull came to the podium and said that today is a very important day for everyone. Their civilization is setting out to colonize another planet for the first time, and the honor of being the pioneer falls to him, Bull. His fiancée Dua and best friend Gun were also granted this privilege. The spaceship with colonizers on board soared into the sky. They flew calmly towards their target. Bull, embracing his bride, said that they were heading to the new promised land. He was sure that a wonderful life awaited them. Suddenly, everyone felt their ship shake. Something crashed into the side of the spaceship. A strange glow appeared in the porthole. No one understood what it was. Bull saw a strange creature near the ship. A giant eye with a huge number of tentacles appeared in front of them. A hunter from the planet Arena found new fighters in space. The day came when the Earthlings were to hold their third fight in the arena. Everyone was armed, but very nervous. Diego paced back and forth excitedly. The guy realized he seemed to be having a panic attack. He asked Gabby how he managed to sleep. Gabriel replied that he was not sleeping. He was concentrating, and Diego advised him to do the same. Kevin cursed. How long could he wait? Fiona sighed, not that she was looking forward to it. Kevin was surprised that Mehdi continued to pray. Could it be that after everything they had been through, he still believed in God? Mehdi responded more than ever. The door swung open and the droids entered. They invited Earthlings to follow them. Kevin smiled. Finally, it was about time. They approached the portal and the droid told them to get ready to leave. And then Diego said that he needed to go to the restroom. Kevin called out to Cedric. He threatened the young man that if he chickened out again, Kevin would personally kill him. Cedric looked at his classmate with fear. The boys approached a large portal. After passing through it, they found themselves at the gate leading to the arena. After climbing the stairs, they will find themselves on the battlefield. Gabriel told everyone to line up. The fight was about to begin. Fiona kissed Kevin, asking him to take care of himself. The girl's face became serious as she prepared for the fight. She shouted to everyone that they should act like it was practice and everything would be fine. Kevin quietly told Gabby, "Let's just hope the tactic works." And so the gates to the arena swung open. The speaker announced that here are people from planet Earth. They impressed the entities incredibly in the first match. Can they show the same result today? Fiona ordered everyone to stop. Melissa asked what was going on. She didn't understand. Kevin asked why they stopped. Gabby didn't know. Nothing could be seen. And then they all understood what was going on. Gabriel cursed. A confused crew emerged from the wreckage of the spaceship. Dua asked the groom what was going on and where they were. Tables with weapons appeared in front of the new arrivals to the arena. Bull said it looks like they will have to fight. Mehdi couldn't believe his eyes. Kevin swore. What kind of joke is this? Diego asked Gabby if they would force them to do this. Gabriel cursed himself for being an idiot. He hadn't thought of this outcome. Today, they were the bad guys. The speaker cried out, "Let the battle begin." The battle leader called on the opponents to fight to the death. The armed Earthlings stood opposite the confused newcomers. Pool and Dua stood in front, and the ship's crew stood behind them, silently looking around. The Earthlings prepared their weapons, but did not attack first. Fiona asked why they didn't attack. Melissa realized that they were the same as Earthlings. They didn't know where they were. They just appeared here and don't understand anything. They are scared. Suddenly, Melissa said that they were lucky today. Gabriel smiled. It would be easy. A confused, disoriented, and most likely inexperienced opponent. He told the boys to attack the way they had trained. But no one moved. The teenagers lowered their heads. Gabby did not understand what was wrong with them. He called out to his friend Diego, but he said that he refused to take part in this. Gabriel asked the confused Diego what he was talking about. Gabby was puzzled as to why they didn't want to attack. Did they really not understand the situation? And suddenly the devil said that it was Gabriel who did not understand the situation. Diego is ready to face any monster to protect his life and his friends. But killing creatures that have fallen victim to the arena in cold blood is something else. Because Diego is not a killer, it is not in his character, unlike Gabriel. Gabby asked the devil what about the others. The Horned One replied that the others are held back not by morality, but by the fear of condemnation. Only a monster could raise arms against the innocent who would dare to become that first monster. It might be Melissa. She's not as innocent as she seems. Kevin cursed. They had to do something. The devil whispered to Gabby that maybe it would be him. This was an opportunity to reveal who he really was. The speaker said in frustration that several minutes had already passed and nothing was happening. The dissatisfied spectators began to make noise, and suddenly Cedric screamed furiously. Grabbing a spear, he rushed forward. Everyone was stunned by surprise. The devil was surprised at what an unexpected outcome. The alien stepped back in confusion. Gritting his teeth and holding his spear at the ready, Cedric ran forward. The young man thrust his spear into the alien closest to him. Green blood spurted from the wound and drenched Cedric. The mortally wounded alien fell and groaned. The guy looked at his dying enemy in surprise. Suddenly, Cedric clutched the spear with a trembling hand and laughed. He turned to his classmates and, shaking his spear, let out a battle cry. The aliens looked at the fragile young man in glasses in surprise. Surprise turned to anger. This guy killed their comrade. The aliens grabbed weapons from the tables and prepared to take revenge. Seeing this, Gabriel shouted for everyone to get ready. Melissa commanded the attack. The teenagers gripped their spears tighter and ran forward. Mechi said that this time they were going. They had no other choice. The Earthlings were getting closer to the aliens with every step. Behol told everyone to hold on. They could do it. Cedric laughed and said that Bull was making a mistake. The aliens don't have a chance. They will kill everyone. The alien commander asked the guy why he was so sure of this. Cedric threw his shirt off his skinny body. The young man exclaimed, "Because they are people." The space travelers, swords in hand, awaited their opponents. Finally, the fight began. The speaker exclaimed joyfully, "At last they would see a bloody battle." The audience murmured approvingly. Gabriel quickly wielded his hatchet. Suddenly, he saw a motionless figure in the middle of the battlefield. It was Diego. Gabby was confused why he wasn't moving. Approaching his friend, the young man said that Diego should fight and earn points. But Diego shook his head. He said that he refuses to take part in this and doesn't care about the points. Gabby was surprised. But didn't he put up a good fight last time? Diego countered. Last time they fought back and they were monsters. Gabriel was confused, and this is his excuse. Meanwhile, the boys were fighting the aliens. Looking at his friend, Gabriel grinned. Diego flared up, "What's so funny about that?" Gabi said that Diego is funny. He doesn't fight because their opponents are victims of this crazy world, and everyone here is like that. The goblins and Skarg were victims just like them. The young man grabbed his friend by the chest. He hissed. This time, those in front of him had a vaguely human expression on their faces, so Diego pretended to be good. Gabriel shouted that Diego was a hypocrite, but the young man pushed Gabby away. Gabriel braked and stopped. He asked his friend with a grin where his non-violence was. Diego yelled at Gabby to leave him alone. Whether it was logical or not, he was not like Gabby. Gabriel asked what that meant. Diego replied that he knew Gabby better than he thought. He had noticed long ago that Gabriel liked it here. Gabriel loves to fight and he loves to kill, so go ahead, Gabby can have some fun. The young man did not expect to hear this from his good-natured friend. Gabriel shouted to Diego as he wished and returned to the battle. The devil whispered, "Could this be the end of a beautiful friendship?" The battle was in full swing. Fiona said they needed to get back in line. They were going to be captured. Cedric wounded another enemy. The man looked pleadingly at the half-naked youth. But Cedric was intoxicated by blood and murder. He struck the wounded, unarmed opponent several times. The bespectacled man exclaimed, "What a thrill, this is so great." But then someone stopped his hand with the sword. Mechi said, "That's enough, the enemy is dead. They have to kill them. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't show them respect." Suddenly, Cedric slashed Mechi with his sword. Kevin saw his friend fall and asked Mechi what was going on. Running up to his friend, Kevin asked his friend to hold on, they would heal him. Cedric chuckled. This would teach him what it meant to be a kick-ass, whoever he thought he was. Kevin's eyes flashed with anger. He asked Cedric why the fucking coward had done that. The bespectacled man replied that he does what he wants. It's still unknown who's the coward here. Kevin swung his sword at Cedric, but he jumped high into the air, dodging the blow. Smiling happily, Cedric attacked Kevin. The young man covered himself with his broadsword. Gabriel asked, puzzled what the two were doing. Melissa cursed and asked what was going on. A surprised Kevin only had time to defend himself from Cedric, and he, with a mad smile, rushed at his old-school enemy. Kevin sent the frail youth flying with a blow from his broadsword. Cedric laughed. It was funny. His hands had been itching to beat Kevin up for a long time. Kevin frowned. It looked like this poor idiot had gone completely crazy. The speaker chuckled. This game was taking an interesting turn. Gabriel asked the guys if they had all gone crazy or something. Cedric, his eyes blazing, rushed at Kevin with his sword. The stunned boy defended himself from his crazy classmate, and he laughingly asked why Kevin wasn't answering him. The guy answered because Cedric stopped being himself, he just went crazy. But Cedric asked with a smile, maybe he had finally become himself. Kevin struck the boy again with the broad part of the sword. Cedric stopped and said that Kevin didn't know him, but he has been watching Kevin for a long time and therefore understands him well. Kevin probably thinks that because Cedric had the courage to stand up to him, it was because he was crazy. Poor weak Cedric would never have dared to attack such a big and strong Kevin. The guy blocked a punch from the unexpectedly nimble Cedric, and he happily said that he had never been afraid of him. Physically, of course, Kevin dominated, but being strong depends on the context, on the rules of the game you play. By high school rules, Kevin was powerful. He had success that allowed him to trample others. But Cedric hardly blames him. He accepted it because it was part of the rules. However, Cedric knew that this would not last long. After school, Kevin's strength would decrease, and Cedric's would grow. Cedric comes from a wealthier family, has better grades, and is recognized and valued by educational institutions. He was ready to dominate according to the rules of this world after finishing school. And Kevin probably ended up like his loser father. The guy roared, calling Cedric a freak. Gritting their teeth, the two enemies clashed heads. Kevin threw the distraught youth back again. Cedric slowed down, and like a fighting dog, he rushed at the enemy again and again. He laughed and said that in this new world there were no rules. Suddenly, Cedric threw his shield at Kevin. The guy dodged and the shield flew past. The bespectacled man attacked his opponent with astonishing tenacity. Very pleased, he shouted that Kevin was finished. Cedric waved his hand. It was only at the last moment that Kevin realized that he had thrown sand at him. The boy tried to rub his eyes to restore his vision. At this time, Cedric pierced Kevin with a sword. The guy gritted his teeth, his whole body filled with unbearable pain. The wounded Kevin swayed and began to fall. Fiona screamed in tears. Gabriel, seeing this, cursed. Kevin whispered that he would kill Cedric, but Tat laughed. The enemy could still speak. "Oh, here comes Kevin's girlfriend running to the rescue. That's so sweet." Cedric swung his sword, intending to finish off the enemy. He said with a smile, "Now Fiona will be able to watch her darling die." Gabriel cursed. He wouldn't make it in time. Kevin quipped, advising Cedric not to miss, and he asked if he would get points for killing people from his team. But then Diego flew up behind Cedric. He hit the puny Cedric with all his might. He flew off and, losing his glasses, fell to the ground with a crash. Diego threw Cedric again. At this time, the rest ran up to the wounded guys. Kevin whispered to his friend that it didn't hurt. He was okay. Gabriel discovered that they couldn't open the terminal in the middle of the game. Diego said that if Kevin survived until the end of the game, they would be able to cure him. The aliens took up a circular defense and fought to the death. Diego knew the game wouldn't end until all their opponents were killed. The young man turned to Gabriel. He asked his friend to do what he had to do. Gabi silently looked at Diego, who had suddenly matured. He pulled his hood up and said everything would be fine. Gabriel ordered no one to move. He would be right back. Poole urged his boys to be strong and hold on. If they hold out long enough, they might survive. And then Boole saw a strange warrior. Gabriel killed the aliens easily and quickly. Boole was surprised how this could be. But the young man apologized and said that he was in a hurry. The speaker announced that the fight was over. The spectators in the arenas shouted joyfully. Everyone enjoyed the fight. The presenter announced that people from planet Earth won again today. This is their second victory in the arena. Gabriel sighed with relief. The speaker said that one more victory and the Earthlings would find themselves in the Major League. Melissa breathed a sigh of relief. Diego frowned. The fight host said they were all looking forward to what the future holds. The gates opened and medical droids came out onto the field. They placed the wounded Kevin in a capsule and sent him to the medical center. The same was done with Cedric. The speaker suggested looking at how many points the fighters earned. Gabriel came in first place and Cedric came in second this time. The boys followed the droids as they left the arena. Melissa looked at Gabriel carefully. The girl remained silent, embarrassed. At the exit, Gabriel was met by Caligan. He asked the little one how he was doing. He missed the game but saw the results. Gabi replied that he was fine. The young man asked what the sour faces of Caligan's friends were about. The guys were fighting with a group that had just been selected. Caligan said he understood everything. The Earthlings were able to score points quite easily. They started off slow, but it all ended quickly. Gabriel has the best result again. Caligan laughed. That's all that matters to Gabby. He patted the young man on the back and said that he liked him. Caligan asked about their deal. Gabriel agreed. The young man answered in the affirmative. And as for the rest, the man asked if they were refusing. Gabi wasn't sure he wanted to continue with them any further. His classmates are weak and emotional. They are too attached to their morals and pride. They are either too predictable or too unpredictable. Gabriel can't figure them out, and it's very tiring. The young man decided that he would be better off alone, as before. Caligan looked at the guy carefully. Putting his hand on his shoulder, he said that he didn't know what was happening to him. But Caligan knew for sure that in this crazy world there was a team, friends, brothers in arms. It was a blessing. He's seen others isolate themselves to make things easier, sometimes making them stronger. But along the way, they become assholes. Gabriel listened to his future sponsor in surprise. Caligan smiled. No need to be an asshole. Having said goodbye to the young man, the man headed in the other direction. Caligan made a date with someone while talking on the phone. He was chatting casually when he suddenly saw an old acquaintance. He greeted Caligan cheerfully. After finishing the phone conversation, the man greeted Thorne. He asked what the Great One was doing on the lower floors. Thorne laughed. He came to register his new champion. His name is Cleo. Caligan was surprised that Thorne himself was signing up his guys. Thorne heard that Caligan had lost another champion, but at least business was recovering. Caligan smiled. Well, he backed the wrong horse, but he plans to return with a promising newcomer. Thorne asked if this was Gabriel White. This young earthling demonstrated excellent skills. His name even surfaced in high circles. Caligan cursed. He was too calm. This freak would want to get ahead of him in this. Thorne said he had considered approaching the young man himself. Curses swirled in Caligan's head. And then Thorne said that he already had a full team, so it was a shame. Cleo said he saw a man in the ghetto and would like to fight him. Thorne asked what Caligan was doing here, if he was here to see her. Caligan spread his hands. Nothing escapes Thorne. Caligan's interlocutor fell silent. Having already taken a few steps, Thorne told Caligan to give her his regards. Caligan asked why he didn't tell her himself. Thorne remained significantly silent. Caligan realized that Thorne still didn't have the courage to do it. Thorne said that they would see each other soon. The man replied, "See you soon." Caligan went out into a cozy park. He stopped and looked up sadly. In front of him stood a golden monument to the indomitable Queen Hilda, and Caligan greeted his beloved. The Earthlings returned to their living quarters after the battle. The fighters drank alien beer to each other's health. Music was playing and tipsy teenagers were dancing. Diego emptied mug after mug. When he emptied his mug again, Melissa carefully asked if Diego should stop. They don't know how this alien beer works. But Diego stubbornly demanded another one from the terminal. At that very second, the drink in the mug began to sparkle. The girl turned to Gabriel, but he said that Diego should do what he wanted. He was already a big boy. The young man slammed his heavy fist on the table and shouted as if he was doing what he wanted. Diego lifted his mug of beer with shaking hands. Gabriel also took a sip of beer. A frustrated Melissa watched her friends. After this fight, everyone's hearts were heavy. Finally, Melissa stood up and silently walked to her room. Gabriel couldn't understand how Cedric had changed so much in such a short time. Yesterday, no one wanted to talk to him, and he crept along the walls. What could have caused such a change, and why only now? Mechi and Fiona sat quietly at a table away from everyone else. Fiona was incredibly angry. This jerk was having fun, and Kevin still hadn't returned. She wanted to kill Cedric right now. Suddenly, they heard Kevin's voice. He noticed that they were having a party there. The guy hoped they weren't celebrating his death. Diego muttered that the worst was about to happen. Fiona threw herself on her beloved's neck. Kevin asked where he was. Mechi pointed towards Cedric. The bespectacled man exclaimed that he was glad to see Kevin on his feet. Everyone was very excited. Kevin growled that Cedric was dead. But 4 of Kevin's classmates told him he wouldn't lay a finger on Cedric. Kevin yelled at them to get out. This bastard was trying to kill him. Cedric, hiding behind the boys' backs, shouted that Kevin attacked him first. Kevin was stunned by such a brazen lie. Cedric told everyone that Mechi and Kevin attacked him. Mechi was outraged. This damn liar turned everything upside down. Cedric complained that they had been bullying him for weeks in front of everyone, and he was just defending himself. Glasses said that these guys acted the same way as in high school, no matter how many people they hadn't intimidated or humiliated yet. A drunk Diego noticed that Cedric's words made sense. Cedric said that in the fight he started to gain a lot of points, and they came to threaten him and tried to kill him. Fiona clenched her fists and said menacingly that he was lying. Kevin said that was enough and took out his battle sword. He yelled at the boys to get away from Cedric. But his classmates raised their spears and demanded that Kevin and his friends not move. The guys were ready to kill each other. Fiona suggested leaving it. They would still find a way to get revenge. A pleased Cedric made an obscene gesture at Kevin. Kevin's eyes blazed with anger at the vile schemer. Kevin calmly said that they were leaving. Diego chuckled in disappointment, which meant there wouldn't be any fight. He put the empty mug on the table and looked up. The guy was surprised. Where was Gabby? Drunk Cedric, leaning on the girl, said that he needed to go to the toilet. The toilet was empty. Cedric was happy. What a wonderful night it was. He laughed. Suddenly, the bespectacled man felt a knife at his throat. Someone quietly warned him not to move. Cedric stuttered and asked Gabriel who he was, but Gabriel told him to shut up. He asked, "Cedric probably thinks he's smart because he fooled all the idiots, but he's not smart. But he's the most dangerous one here." Gabi didn't know what Cedric was planning, but he warned him that if he didn't like it, he would kill him without him even noticing. Gabriel asked if that was clear. Cedric replied that he understood. The young man hit the bespectacled man with a urinal he had just used. Cedric's companion looked into the toilet and asked why it was taking so long. The girl saw that the guy was sitting on the toilet floor with his head down. He whispered through his teeth that he would definitely finish off Gabriel. Gabi returned to his room. He took off his clothes, getting ready to sleep. The young man sighed heavily. Today had been a hard day. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door of his room. Gabriel took the knife. Could it be Cedric? He seemed to have made it clear. The young man opened the door and was very surprised. Melissa was standing at the threshold. Gabi asked what was going on. The girl gently took the young man and pulled him towards her. Tears rolled down her eyes as she pressed her lips to his. Gabriel himself didn't understand how they ended up in bed. He was a little puzzled. It was interesting. Suddenly, the girl got out of bed. She got dressed silently. Gabriel asked her if everything was okay, but Melissa apologized for some reason. Gabriel looked after Melissa, puzzled, and she quickly ran to her room. The young man asked what had just happened, and the devil behind his shoulder replied, "I have no idea." Kevin took out his battle sword from storage just in case. Sleepy Fiona asked him if he was already awake, but the guy replied that he couldn't sleep. Given what happened yesterday, Kevin assumed that Cedric and his henchmen might attack while they were sleeping. But Fiona doubted that bunch of cowards would attack. They would be dead if it weren't for Kevin and his friends. Kevin said the rules had changed, and if he had stayed on the field a little longer, he would have died. Fiona asked what was bothering him so. The guy began to understand what was happening to them, and it scared him. This planet, this arena, all of it drove Cedric and the others crazy, and it looks like it's starting to drive him, Kevin, crazy too. The guy fell to his knees. He wants to survive and for them to return home. But most likely they would die here, and Kevin felt powerless from the knowledge of this. Fiona took his hands. If they were destined to die, then so be it. Such was fate. On the other hand, they can choose their path in life. If in order to survive they have to kill, they will do it. If they need to walk the steps of this world, they will do so without any hesitation. The only thing that matters is that they are together. Kevin quietly said that he loved Fiona, and she replied that she loved him too. They merged into a long and tender kiss. Only Diego, who had gotten drunk, remained in the common room. He fell asleep right on the table, and his booming snores echoed throughout the entire hall. Someone was quietly creeping up the stairs. Several teenagers headed to the sleeping area of the compartment. Gabriel slept peacefully in his room. Suddenly, he felt someone grab his hands. The young man was dragged out of bed and thrown onto the floor. Gabi looked at the uninvited guests. Cedric and his new friends were in the room. Gabriel asked what the hell they were doing there. One of the guys replied, they came to smash Gabi's face. The guy immediately punched Gabi in the face. The young man cursed to himself. What was wrong with them all? They struck Gabriel with blow after blow with fists and feet. Cedric stopped them, saying enough. He commanded them to lift Gabriel. The boys lifted up their beaten classmate. Cedric told Gabi that he had come to finish their conversation from yesterday. The young man laughed. What a conversation. Cedric was mostly crying. The enraged, bespectacled man punched Gabriel in the face. Cedric recalled that Gabi had threatened him, saying that he would kill him and he wouldn't even notice. Kicking the young man in the chest, Cedric added that he didn't notice the freak. The bespectacled man continued to kick Gabi and said that even if he was stronger and smarter than them, there was one thing he had forgotten. Gabriel is on his own. Cedric muttered that from now on, Gabby would keep quiet and do as he was told. Otherwise, they would take good care of him. The boys were already heading for the exit when they heard laughter. Cedric turned around, confused. Bloodied Gabriel laughed. Cedric asked if he was completely crazy and why he was laughing. Gabby spat out the blood that had accumulated in his mouth. The boy found it funny to see Cedric walking around with a bunch of clowns and thinking that was enough to scare him. One of Cedric's companions asked if perhaps he needed more punches. Gabby asked if they knew what separated people like them from people like him. He looked at the puzzled faces of his classmates and laughed. Walking up to the door, Gabriel pressed the panel. Stopping at the threshold, Gabby said the answer was quite simple. One of the boys asked what Gabriel was doing. Suddenly, the young man threw a ball to Cedric. He caught it and asked what it was. And then he saw the clock mechanism. Cedric cursed and threw the ball, realizing it was a bomb. And Gabriel said the difference is that he loves this planet. Cedric and his companions panicked and tried to escape the bomb. The clock mechanism showed 0 minutes, 0 seconds. There was a deafening explosion. Gabriel's night guests scattered in different directions. Fiona asked what it was. Kevin replied it was an explosion. Melissa realized something had happened in Gabriel's room. Diego continued to snore at the table in the common room. Suddenly, Cedric fell onto Diego's table with a crash. The bespectacled man muttered, "This freak is inadequate. He is sick." A bloodied Gabriel jumped into the common room after Cedric. He was amazed. This bomb was more powerful than he imagined. The young man took out an injector to heal his wounds. Melissa asked Gabriel what was going on. The young man replied that everything was fine and there was no need to worry. He looked intently at Cedric. Amidst clouds of smoke, he walked towards the bespectacled man, adding that there was a small problem that needed to be resolved. Diego shook Cedric, asking what had happened to him. Mechi asked if it was Gabriel's room that exploded. Gabi asked, "So Cedric is still alive? That's even better." The bespectacled man hid behind Diego, begging him to help him because Gabriel wanted to kill him. Melissa quickly went down to the common room, asking what was going on. Gabi replied that it was okay. He and Cedric just needed to finish their conversation. Cedric grabbed Diego, saying that Gabi was crazy and that he was going to kill him. Gabriel jumped onto the table where Diego had just been sitting. A frightened Cedric recoiled. Diego put his hand on his friend's shoulder and asked Gabi not to do it. The young man looked at Diego and quietly told him to let him go right now. Diego recognized that look. He had seen it in the arena. The young man silently removed his hand from Gabriel's shoulder. Cedric took advantage of the pause and jumped out the window. He landed on the street, knowing he had to run. Gabriel threw a knife after him. The cold weapon sank into Cedric's shin. The bespectacled man groaned and fell to the ground. Gabriel soon caught up with him. Cedric, crawling away, shouted for him not to come near him. But the young man silently and slowly approached the enemy. Cedric called the terminal. He cursed and searched for a weapon in panic. Gabriel smiled. 2 axes appeared in his hands. This world simply fascinated him. Melissa, Diego, Kevin, and Fiona came running after Gabriel. Cedric looked at his sworn enemies in horror. Gabi, holding 2 axes, looked at Cedric with burning eyes. He smiled and thanked his classmate. He asked in confusion why. Gabriel promised his mother not to kill people, but he always wanted to know what it was like to kill a person. Cedric cursed silently. Gabi really was a psychopath. He thanked Cedric for being the first person Gabi would kill. The bespectacled man asked what about the promise he made to his mother. Gabriel said with a smile, "Whatever." Cedric began to scream, begging his classmates to save him. Gabriel swung the axe. Another second and Cedric would die. But suddenly Gabi's axe was destroyed. He didn't understand where the axe blade was. Suddenly, a bright light flashed between Gabriel and Cedric. Mechi asked what this nonsense was. Gabriel realized that he was caught. Killing outside the arena was prohibited. An Inquisitor appeared before the boys and demanded that this unauthorized fight be stopped immediately. The people were surrounded by battle droids and ordered to lay down their weapons and return to their compartment. Diego realized that Gabriel was in trouble. The young man raised his hands and said that he surrendered. The Inquisitor told the soldiers to prepare for the verdict. Gabriel White is sentenced to a fine of 2,000 points for attempting to deprive the entities of their precious offering. In addition, the Inquisition confiscated all his belongings. The young man was in shock. The Inquisitor added that the man had received a warning and would be destroyed on the 3rd occasion. Gabriel asked why he was the only one being punished. Cedric attacked him first. The judge explained that fighting was not prohibited. If White did not want to kill him, there was no need to emit such a murderous aura. The Inquisitor flew away, shouting for the people to return to their homes. Gabi snorted, saying that Cedric was damn lucky. Gabriel had almost no glasses left, no weapons, and he didn't even have a room anymore. And then everyone received a message that the next fight would take place in 46 hours. The boys were terrified. No one knew what to do, especially Gabriel, who was left without glasses and weapons. Fiona suggested that everyone calm down. There was a more serious problem. They had fought before thanks to teamwork. Yes, now teamwork is over, we'll have to develop a strategy for 6 people. Gabriel said thoughtfully that, as usual, they didn't understand anything. Kevin frowned. What did that mean? Gabi asked if they had already forgotten what happened in the arena. Melissa whispered. Then Cedric almost killed Kevin. There's nothing stopping them from killing them in the arena, meaning they could face 2 teams at once. But that's Kevin's problem. The guys were outraged by what Gabriel was talking about. Kevin lost his temper, so he was right about Gabriel. Gabi feels safe thanks to her deal with Caligan. Gabriel listened silently to Kevin's scream. The guy shouted that Gabi was only interested in her own survival. Diego objected to Kevin, saying that he was talking nonsense. But Kevin didn't believe in Gabriel's good intentions. Diego no longer knew what to say to his classmate. Kevin insisted that all this time Gabi was only protecting his own interests and didn't care about anyone else. Melissa remembered how Gabi saved her. The image of him rushing out of the window after her appeared before her eyes. The girl remembered their strange night of love. She didn't believe that such a person could think only about himself. Gabriel asked Kevin if he was finished. The young man confirmed that yes, for him his own survival was above all else. But wasn't it the same for Kevin? Wasn't it the same for everyone else? Of course, Gabi's plan was aimed at ensuring her own safety, but initially it was beneficial to everyone. But Kevin ruined everything. He continued to act like the school's biggest bully and humiliate Cedric. But they weren't at school and they weren't kids anymore. What really pisses Kevin off is that Gabi has become the leader of the group, something he couldn't do because of his cowardice. That's why Kevin got everyone into this mess with Cedric. Fiona asked Gabriel to stop. They had heard enough. Gabi sighed. Everyone was taken aback by Gabriel's speech, and he turned around and walked towards the exit, telling Kevin, whether he liked it or not, Gabriel was his best option. The devil asked why the guy was doing this to poor Kevin. Gabriel tried to be accommodating and understanding, but they only do what they want. From now on, classmates will obey, voluntarily or by force. Caligan dozed off on a bench opposite Hilda's statue. Suddenly he opened his eyes. Cursing, Caligan asked what time it was. He looked at his phone to see how many missed calls he had, and suddenly he saw that he was not alone in the park. Opposite Caligan stood Bishop Praxis. The priest noted that the artisans who created this statue are incredible. It seems ready to move at any moment. How much time had passed since the bishop and Caligan had seen each other? Caligan wondered if it was 20 or 30 years. Praxis lived for many millennia, and yet these few decades seemed very long to him. It's hard to even imagine how difficult those years without his wife were for Caligan. The bishop said that he often recalls that period, the era of the 3 kings, the era of miracles. Hilda was a magnificent warrior, powerful, beautiful, ruthless. If Praxis had the power to break the rules and give Caligan his wife back, he would have done so. Turning around, the old bishop assured them that Arena was eternally grateful to them for their sacrifices. As he left, the priest said, "Let the entities guide you." Caligan looked again at the golden statue of his beloved wife. Hilda seemed to be reproaching him. The former Arena champion clenched his fist. He called out to his luminosity, Praxis, and said that she was approaching. The priest did not understand who was approaching. Caligan explained that a new era of miracles is approaching. The bishop looked at his old acquaintance in bewilderment. Caligan shouted that he promised this to him and Hilda. He will do everything possible to revive her. Praxis laughed and said he was looking forward to it. Night has fallen on the planet Arena. Gabriel approached the building with security. It must be here. Crab, the organizer of street fights in the Ghetto, suggested this place to him. The guards asked the young man whether he came to watch or to fight, and he said to fight. The young man was launched. The welcome droid must explain the rules of this place. The droid greeted the fighters. This is the arena of the 3rd-level catacombs. The catacombs offer various types of combat. Gabriel is at level 1. 5 wins will allow him to move up to level 2. The minimum participation price is 300 points. The guy approached the registration terminal. 300 points was all he had left. After registration, a number appeared on Gabriel's hand. He estimated that 2 or 3 victories would be enough to buy weapons and medicine. The next fight was announced. Entering the arena, Gabby thought he just needed to avoid getting hit. And then the guy saw his opponent. Gabriel's face lengthened. Opposite him stood a turtle-like multi-armed giant. There was unrest in the Earthlings' living quarters. A battle was about to begin. The droids were already following them, but Gabriel wasn't there yet. Diego was indignant, wondering what the hell he was doing. Melissa asked if anyone knew where he had gone. Mehdi and Kevin reasoned that Gabby could not have escaped. It was impossible here. Suddenly, Kevin assumed that Gabriel was dead. Diego flared up. How could one say such things? But Kevin shrugged. They hadn't seen him for more than a day, he just assumed. Fiona suggested focusing on the upcoming fight. The droids appeared and invited the Earthlings to follow them, as the time for their battle was approaching. Diego said that they have one missing person, Gabriel White. He has been missing for more than a day. The droid paused to clarify the information. A few seconds later, he replied that fighter Gabriel White had been found. He was already there. Diego sighed with relief. Cedric and his retinue appeared behind him. Diego had almost forgotten about them. The renegades, armed with spears and shields, marched forward cheerfully. The Earthlings once again followed a familiar path. Soon they approached the portal to the arena. Diego called loudly for Gabriel. Suddenly they saw their classmate. Gabi sat on the steps covered in blood and asked why everyone was screaming like that. Diego lifted his friend to his feet and asked what had happened to him. A surprised Kevin noticed that Gabriel had taken quite a beating. The young man said that he was in a private arena and wanted to earn points to arm himself. But he was defeated by a giant turtle, lay unconscious for almost the entire day and has no means of treatment. In short, Gabi found himself in deep trouble. Melissa, excited, almost ran up to Gabriel. She handed him an injector to treat wounds. The girl said that Gabi left so quickly that day. Melissa called up the terminal. She had enough points left to buy basic equipment. She immediately handed over the purchased weapon to Gabriel. The young man muttered in confusion that Melissa was saving his life. Gabi was confused. He was sure that Melissa was angry with him after what they did. The girl timidly approached Gabriel and said that he needed to know one thing. She gently stroked the young man's cheek. Melissa said that no matter what happened, no matter who he really was, he was not alone. Gabriel said, confused, that it was good. The friends watched this scene with their mouths open. Fiona giggled. She had a premonition of this. Cedric came up from behind and said that they needed to talk. Kevin asked what he wanted, to kill them before the fight. Gabriel asked Cedric what he wanted. Cedric said he hated each of them and knew it was mutual and he wasn't going to apologize. However, if they want to survive, they need each other in this fight. Therefore, for the duration of the battle, he proposes a truce. Cedric extended his hand to Gabriel. The young man looked silently at the traitor's outstretched hand. There was a tense pause. Finally, Gabi agreed to make a truce and shook the outstretched hand. The speaker welcomed perverts and sadists to the bloody arena. Caligan sat in the stands, hoping that this fight would go well. The low-level arenas were tiring him out. Diego asked his friend if he really trusted Cedric. Of course, Gabi doesn't trust him, but what else could be done? She'll have to keep an eye on him and his team. Cedric ordered to keep an eye on Gabriel's group, saying that they were on their side. The speaker said cheerfully that today everyone was hoping for a good massacre and introduced the fighters. The first team are earthly people. This is their last mandatory match. Today they will face formidable opponents. The gates on the opposite side of the arena swung open. The loud, menacing tread of giants was heard. Cedric's team members gaped in fear. Gabriel recognized them and said, unfortunately, they were very unlucky. The mutant warriors of the Space Dome, the Jade Titans from the universe 890, came out against the people. The host asked the audience who they thought would win. Caligan cursed. He had seen turtle fights. This would be a massacre. The speaker gave the signal to begin the battle. Fiona cursed, but Melissa told her not to focus on the enemy's size, since they had the numbers advantage. The guys discussed what to do and decided that they needed to attack first. Gabriel told Diego that they would need his strength and asked him not to let them down this time. The friend replied that Gabi could count on him. One of the turtles said that if he confronted one of these people, it would be easier than eating a piece of cake. Kevin rushed at the enemy with a victorious cry. 4 of the strongest fighters rushed towards the mutant turtles. Fiona commanded the others forward, and she and Melissa ran. But Cedric and his friends remained standing, covered by shields. Melissa told Fiona that the others weren't following them. Fiona turned around and asked what was wrong. One of the turtles took aim at Fiona. Kevin yelled at his friend to get out of there. The young man covered his friend, repelling the attack with his sword. The mutant staggered from the blow. Fiona didn't know how to tell Kevin what was happening, but he already understood everything. Half of the Earthling team stood to the side and did not move. That faggot Cedric plans to stay out of the fight. Diego and his friend fought Gabriel's opponent from yesterday. Mechi told his opponent that 4 blades against 2 was cheating. The girls attacked another mutant, but this time the enemy turned out to be really strong. Kevin jumped on the enemy and struck him with his sword with all his might. The giant turtle only staggered. Taking a few steps back, the Jade Titan stopped. Fiona praised the darling. Kevin said he had a strange feeling about his sword. The enemy laughed. They would need something better than their weapons to pierce their scales. Kevin swore loudly. Diego noticed that their blows were useless and asked Gabriel what they would do. The young man looked closely at the turtle's hands and paws. Then he examined the opponent's legs and neck. He said we should try to hit the joint between their scales. But aiming and not getting hit by one of the 4 hands would be difficult if there were more of them. And then it dawned on Gabriel. He asked Diego if he could create a dust cloud. The strong man immediately began to raise dust into the air. The mutant sneezed. He said that there was no point in blinding him if they couldn't do any harm. And then the turtle was confused about where these small fighters had gone. Kevin yelled at the girls to hold on. The mutant's huge pole pounded the people mercilessly. The mutant told Kevin with a grin that he had caught him this time. Gabriel and Diego rushed to help their friends. They jumped on the dumbfounded enemy from behind, who asked in bewilderment where they came from. Gabriel hung onto the turtle's paw and shouted at Melissa to quickly hit him in the neck joint. The mutant realized what they were up to and shouted no. The girl with a spear ran towards the mutant as fast as she could. She pushed off the ground as easily as a ball and flew up. A couple of seconds and Melissa's spear was pierced by the turtle's neck. Kevin watched with bated breath as he saw what happened. Fiona watched her comrade in arms without looking away. Gabriel let go of the monster's paw and flew down. Diego held on to the enemy's paw with all his might. Blood gushed from the mutant's mouth, and he asked in confusion if this wasn't a joke. The defeated mutant fell to the ground. A pleased Caligan exclaimed, "Well played." Kevin sighed with relief. With one less, they could defeat them. The guy turned his head, trying to figure out where Mechi was. And then he saw his faithful friend with horror. Mechi was covered in blood. His opponent said he fought well, bravo. The guy told the guys that he might need some help. He thrust his sword into the ground to stay on his feet. Kevin ran as fast as he could to help his friend. The girls were horrified to see the bloody guy. Gabriel cursed, but he had asked everyone to stick together. Mechi's strength was leaving him. He dropped to one knee. The guy asked his opponent if he could do it quickly. He replied, of course, the guy deserved his respect. But then Kevin stood between the monster and Mechi and shouted that the enemy would not touch him. He smiled and said that he should let his friend go with honor. At this time, Gabriel, Diego, and Melissa simultaneously attacked Mechi's opponent. Gabriel shouted at Kevin to take Mechi away from here. The confused mutant was unable to respond to the attacks of the nimble people. Kevin reassured his friend, saying that everything would be fine. They would cure him. The boy answered in a weak voice that he needed to rest. The next second, his black eyes closed. A terrified Fiona asked if he was dead. Kevin replied, "Mechi is still alive. They must quickly finish this fight." The young man clenched his teeth and growled. Suddenly, he shouted to his classmate who was standing to the side. Why are they just standing there doing nothing? They are going to watch them die one by one. Kevin asked why they, the freaks, were doing this. Cedric quietly said that they were not moving. And then Cedric's group was noticed by mutants. They decided that those people were ignoring them because of complete disrespect. Cedric's terrified supporters suddenly saw the monsters coming towards them. The turtle's trident was flying straight at the big guy. The big guy didn't have time to dodge, and the weapon pinned him to the ground. Cedric, splattered with blood, cursed loudly. He ordered the others to run. Fiona, seeing this, said, "Those nits got what they deserved." Kevin told his friend to leave Mechi. They needed to finish this fight. Gabriel and his friends fought desperately against Mechi's enemy. Blows rained down on them one after another. So far, they managed to dodge and block the blows. But this couldn't go on for long. They were all already tired. Gabriel cursed. "This enemy is strong. They won't be able to hold out for long." The mutant said that the people lack technology, but they are doing well. This fight is very exciting. At this time, Kevin jumped on top of the enemy. The young man gathered all his strength and struck at the mutant's swords. Kevin jumped to the ground, leaving the debris in the enemy's hands. Looking at the broken swords, the Jade Titan was perplexed. The guy asked what the damn stupid turtle would say to that. Kevin told Gabriel that they had to finish this. He put all his strength into this blow and can barely move. If they miss this chance, they are finished. Diego clenched his teeth in anger. Gabriel said that this would be the last blow. Melissa bravely rushed into battle. Gabriel shouted for everyone to attack together. Kevin gathered his last strength and moved towards the enemy. The mutant understood the Earthling's technique. He grinned, one sword against four. The Titan assumed a strange pose and said that he would have to be serious. Diego rushed at his enemy with a roar. A cold fire of courage burst from Melissa's blue eyes. Kevin mobilized his last strength, but Gabriel felt that something was wrong here. Caligan realized what the Titan was about to do and shouted for everyone to be careful. The mutant instantly turned into a raging whirlwind. Kevin was the first to be wounded. Melissa's leg was cut off by a raging warlike whirlwind. Gabriel was suddenly left without an arm. Only Diego was able to block the attack. 3 of the 4 attackers lay on the ground, bleeding. The mutant chuckled. He still missed one. Diego stood with an axe in his hands and did not understand what had happened. The young man saw Gabriel covered in blood. Then he turned his gaze to the lifeless Melissa. Then I saw Kevin lying in blood. The axe fell from Diego's hands. Did they all die? The giant grinned. The fighter had lost the will to fight. He would quickly put an end to his life. Diego frowned. This bastard would kill him here and now, but he didn't want to die. Suddenly, the young man changed dramatically. His eyes blazed. His aura became fiery golden. Quiet and modest, Diego instantly turned into fire. His opponent asked in surprise what it was. Gabriel looked at his classmate in shock, wondering what was wrong with Diego. The 2 turtles looked around in fear. Caligan cursed. He couldn't believe his eyes. This is resonance, and spontaneous resonance at that. To see something like this at this level of the arena is simply miraculous. Titan didn't understand what was happening, but he was sure that it didn't change anything and swung the honey at the guy. The next second, the mutant screamed in unbearable pain. Diego pierced the Jade Titan's body with his bare hands. As he died, the turtle warrior looked at the hole in his body in bewilderment. The speaker watched the fight with interest. It was an unexpected turn of events. Diego growled menacingly throughout the arena. The spectators became quiet. They talked among themselves, asking what was wrong with the man. But soon, the entities began to shout in approval, applauding Diego. Gabriel tied a tourniquet around his arm, unable to understand what was happening to his friend. Fiona looked around and called out to Kevin. Gabi called out to Diego, but he didn't hear him. The young man realized that his friend seemed to be in a trance. The 2 remaining mutants looked in surprise at the unarmed enemy who was walking towards Nick. Diego growled loudly and ran towards his enemies. At this time, Cedric jumped onto the shell of one of the turtles. Taking aim, he thrust the spear into the neck of one of the mutants. Cedric jumped to the ground right in front of the last remaining Titan. But at that moment, Diego flew up to the mutant. The young man pierced the Titan's super-strong body with his fist. Diego, covered in the blood of his enemies, suddenly fell to the ground. Cedric, looking at the incredible strength of his classmate, thought in confusion what kind of nonsense this was. Falling to the ground, Diego began to shake as if in a fever. Suddenly, the young man opened his eyes and looked around in confusion. Seeing Cedric nearby, Diego asked him what happened. The young man whispered that he felt completely empty. Diego's eyes rolled back and he lost consciousness. A satisfied orator rose above the battlefield and declared the people from Earth the victors. Thus, the men completed their 3 obligatory fights. The host reminded the sadists that the show was high quality and urged them to give the fighters some points. Medical droids entered the field. The speaker showed the results of the fight. Diego was in first place, Gabriel in second. The people and the droids left the arena. The guys waited in the corridor for the seriously wounded to be treated. Gabriel looked at his restored hand. The level of technology in this world was simply incredible. Diego asked his friend if the others would be okay. They were in such a terrible state. The guy felt guilty. Fiona said that Cedric should feel guilty. If their bunch of cowards had fought as agreed, they wouldn't be here. Fiona was glad that the dead were only in Cedric's group. But then the doors to the medical bay opened. Kevin, Mechi, and Melissa emerged healthy. Fiona threw herself on Kevin's neck. An overjoyed Diego grabbed Melissa, asking how she was feeling. Gabriel was also glad that Melissa was okay. The girl was a little embarrassed and asked what next. Gabi said that according to Caligan, they will bring him to the trading hall. There, the guys should be introduced to the buyers. These could be townspeople looking for new slaves or sponsors recruiting fighters. Caligan was already in the trading room. It was Block 99's turn, and the presenter asked if they had a representative. Gabriel raised his hand, and the host asked who wanted to leave the arena and join the citizen service. Gabby replied that they all wanted to fight in the arena again. The host banged the gavel and invited sponsors to place their bets. Participants began bidding for Diego. Caligan cursed. It was clear that after what had happened, there would be proposals. He raised his hand and said he would take the whole team for 150,000 points. The small shoppers began to buzz excitedly. 150,000 was too much. Caligan was pleased. These clowns fell silent. And suddenly an offer of 250,000 for the entire team was made. Thorne appeared in the trading room. Caligan cursed. He should have known he would come. Gabriel froze. He didn't know who this new customer was. The auctioneer announced that there was an offer of 250,000 for the entire lot. One of the customers recognized Thorne. No one understood what a man of his stature was doing there. Caligan looked sullenly at his former comrade in arms. A slight, mocking smile played across Thorne's face. Diego whispered to Gabby what they were going to do, but the young man told his friend to relax. By law, fighters have the right to choose sponsors. Caligan apparently didn't expect that someone could raise the stakes so much and ruin his plans. Thorne's offer seemed very generous, but Gabby had no intention of joining him. Gabriel didn't know how to explain the team's choice to the auctioneer, and suddenly Caligan offered 400,000 for everyone. All the customers were shocked. They decided that the man had gone crazy. The young man was confused about what he was doing. Thorne chuckled and said that he really enjoyed auctions. He said it was too high a price and he was leaving the game. Gabriel sighed with relief. Well done, Caligan. But Caligan cursed silently. That bastard Thorne had provoked him, and he had fallen for it. The auctioneer declared this lot sold. Caligan waved his hand, telling the boys to follow him. Gabriel asked Caligan if he knew that guy. He replied that it was his old friend. The sponsor invited the team on board his ship. Diego was delighted, wondering if this was a real spaceship. But Caligan said that it was not designed for space. Fiona asked if she could go back to their block. She left her things there. Caligan agreed to look there. The ship flew over the fashionable areas of the city. The boys looked out the windows with delight. The views seemed incredible to them. Only Cedric didn't look anywhere. He didn't know what they would do to him now. Gabriel thought they had completed the first stage, but what next? Meanwhile, the ship approached a large, beautiful estate. Caligan presented the house. It will be the team's headquarters where they will live and train. The company was met by a girl who reported to the boss that all preparations had been completed. The man thanked Gladys and introduced her to the others, and that they could contact her with any questions. The guys looked at the beauty with their mouths open. It seemed that there weren't only disgusting creatures on this planet. Fiona frowned, and Kevin hastened to say that Gladys was not his type. The boys' rooms are upstairs. They can choose any. They will meet for dinner in 2 hours. Gabby was pleasantly surprised when he opened the door to the room. It's less austere here than the previous home, and there's even a bathroom. Diego dropped by and was absolutely delighted with the luxurious rooms. But Gabby reminded them that they were not on vacation. Technically, they were still prisoners. 2 hours later, they all descended into the luxurious dining room. Raising his mug, Caligan greeted the newcomers. Together, they would write the most beautiful pages of arena history. Kevin asked who this sponsor of theirs was. He didn't expect such an atmosphere. Diego praised the food, and Melissa worriedly asked where Gabriel was. Cedric couldn't eat. He had a bad feeling. Caligan greeted Gabriel, the captain of the new team, who entered. Those present greeted him warmly. Fiona asked what was on Gabby's face, and Kevin didn't understand why he became captain. Gabriel thanked Caligan for his hospitality, for honoring the terms of the agreement, and for appointing him captain. Gabby promised to do everything to maintain the unity of the group in order to raise them to the top of the arena and honor the House of Caligan. With all this in mind, they made a difficult decision. The droids captured Cedric and his 2 companions. The boys, seeing this, cursed. For a team to be effective, you need to trust each other, and Cedric and his friends have proven themselves unworthy of trust. Cedric asked in horror if they were going to kill them. Caligan laughed. Of course not. He paid a fortune for everyone. It would be a waste. He offered them to his colleague as payment for a debt, and what he does with them is his business. Caligan doesn't need such cowardly little brats in his house. Gabriel walked up to Cedric and reminded him of one thing. He was left all alone on an alien planet. Cedric began to wail, begging for mercy. He shouted to Gabriel that he was sorry for everything. Cedric humbly asked for forgiveness and help. Soon the screams died down and the future slaves were taken away. Mechi glanced sideways at the surprisingly calm Gabriel. And he asked the guys not to make such a face. It was a party after all. The next day, Caligan invited everyone to the training arena. He introduced Loho, who would now be their coach. The boys will train every day in anticipation of their first fight as a team. Kevin asked when the fight would be and if it would come as a surprise to them. Loho demanded silence. They will speak when they are given the floor. Caligan reassured them that the first battle would take place when Loho and he agreed that they were ready. Gladys added that they needed to find a team name and do marketing, which would also take time. We also need to take care of the fighter's appearance. It's hard to make champions out of such unkempt people. Fiona was offended. She was the one who was unkempt. Caligan agreed that they looked bad. But for now, he would leave them with Loho. They would meet in the evening. As he left, Caligan asked Loho not to offend the fighters on the first day. The owner of the house and Gladys headed for the exit. Today, Loho wanted to test them to assess their level. The test is very simple. In the blink of an eye, the coach was next to the fighters. His fist landed right in front of Gabriel's nose. The young man was confused. He didn't even see Loco approaching. Everyone turned to the coach, and he said that today they will fight. He told the fighters to take out their weapons and attack him. Diego asked if we were talking about real weapons. Yes, they should get real weapons and attack him all at once, and it would be better to fight seriously. Gabriel took out the sword and shield that Melissa had recently bought him. Covering himself with a shield, he prepared for battle. Kevin pulled out his favorite broadsword. Mechi took a thin oriental saber in both hands. Fiona, as always, had a shield and spear. Melissa and Diego also took out their combat weapons. Loho asked what they were waiting for. Kevin and Mechi were the first to attack. The coach said that Kevin was swinging his sword without realizing that his weapon made him vulnerable to close-range counterattacks. To illustrate, Loho hit the guy on the nose with a stick. Kevin dropped his sword and flew to the side. At that moment, Mechi ran up to the coach from behind. Loho asked, "Is he sure his swords are made for two-handed use? He's wasting his accuracy and mobility." After kicking Mechi in the chest, the trainer advised him to first learn to fight with one blade. Turning to the others, Loho asked, "So that's all?" Diego said he understood. It was the bell test. The purpose of the test is to teach them how to work as a team. But the coach said the guy was wrong. He just wants to beat them to see how strong they are. Next, the girls with spears attacked the coach. But this attack didn't work either. Loho said that even if they attacked him in a coordinated manner, they had no chance against him. Melissa, closing her eyes, dodged the blows of the coach's stick. Fiona was able to dodge too. Gabriel was the last to go into battle. Loco knew that he was Caligan's favorite. He thinks that the guy has great potential. Gabi allowed the others to attack Loho, looking for a weakness. But since he found nothing, he simply continued to stand there. The coach said that Gabi was very smart and rushed in to attack himself. The young man knew he had no chance against this guy. Gabriel retreated cautiously, parrying the blows. Loho was surprised. It seems he has more experience than the others. But the guy has one drawback: he thinks too much. Gabriel asked how it was. The coach explained that fighting is strategy and technique, of course, but it is also instinct. This desire sits deep inside, the desire for violence, fighting, and power. This is what Caligan felt in Gabriel, the fire calling for battle and blood. Loho feels it too. But for some reason, Gabriel hides it. The coach asked the young man what was holding him back. Immediately, a delighted devil appeared behind the guy. This guy seems to see right through Gabi as she sits. The young man turned to the horned inner demon in confusion. Lojo said he wanted to meet the real Gabriel, to see his true face. Two wide cleavers appeared in the trainer's hands. He said that if Gabi didn't show her true colors right now, he would hurt him. The young man looked at his new mentor in confusion. He realized that he wasn't joking. A shadow fell across the guy's face. When he raised his head again, his face changed and he answered harshly, "Let Loho try." Gabriel seemed to have been transported to another dimension. He stood among the stars. Suddenly, he saw someone approaching him. Opposite him stood the same red-eyed devil who had been chasing him. Suddenly, the devil took off his creepy horned skull mask. Under the mask was a young man who looked surprisingly like Gabi, but with red eyes. Gabriel was shocked. Could this really be a hidden part of his personality? The young man frowned as his dark side demanded. The red-eyed double silently handed Gabi his horned mask. The creepy mask was getting closer and closer. It seemed to be reaching out to Gabi. And so I found myself back in the training arena. Now Gabby had a horned mask on her face and her eyes were burning with blood. Loco was surprised. The guy's face changed beyond recognition. Gabriel pushed off the floor and rushed into battle. The coach barely had time to fight back. He was shocked. He was probably dreaming it. After kicking Gabby, the coach threw him away, saying that this was much better. The young man braked and stopped at a safe distance. Loho said that this was not enough. Gabby had to show him who he was. The guy asked if Loco really wanted to die or what. The coach asked him in surprise what he said. Suddenly, Gabby shouted that he would kill Loho. It felt like there was a completely different person standing in the arena now. A powerful purple aura of death flowed around Gabriel. The coach was surprised. This young man also responded. The boy gripped his battle sword tighter in the river, and suddenly a strange, bloodthirsty smile appeared on his face. The young man swung his sword and uttered incomprehensible words. Loho saw that Gabby had made projections. He seemed to instinctively understand how to do it. Impressive. Now the coach was attacked by 5 Gabriels at once. Loho felt that Gabby was completely free. If this continued, he would destroy the entire arena. Releasing a golden aura, the coach said it was time to end this. A huge golden snake flew towards Gabby. He wrapped his arms around the young man, who asked in confusion what it was. There was a powerful explosion. Gabriel's aura evaporated and he lost consciousness. Loco caught the falling, lifeless fighter. This is already the second one in the group who enters into spontaneous resonance. Their species must be especially sensitive to it. Now Loho understood Caligan's choice. After looking around, he decided to call in the medical droids. After a couple of hours, everyone was back on their feet and Loco suggested starting the training. As the coach expected, they are weak. Gabriel couldn't remember his fight with Lojo. He must have passed out. Strangely enough, Gabby felt like he was having fun. The coach added that they have potential. 2 of them have already made a splash. Mechi asked if resonance was that weird thing Diego did the other day. But who was the second one? Lojo explained that he was talking about Diego and Gabriel. Gabby was surprised. He didn't remember anything, Loco reassured him. The first entrances into resonance can cause trance states. Loho saw Diego. He was indeed in a trance. But Gabby seemed completely lucid. Either he was lying or something was wrong with him. The trainer decided to explain to the students what resonance is. Space is washed by a flow of fundamental energy. This flow is called the Great Flow. No one knows its origin. The planet Arena is located at the crossroads of several branches of the Great Stream. Loco is sure that they have become stronger here than on their home planet. Diego was surprised, so that's what it was. Energy, similar to a great flow, circulates within every living being. When a person has been able to align his energy with the energy of the flow, he is said to have entered into resonance. Resonance allows you to multiply energy and use it for great achievements. To demonstrate, Loho directed a stream of energy at the wall. There was a deafening explosion. The boys were shocked by such terrifying power. The coach said that he would teach them how to resonate, and if they mastered this, they would easily rise in the C-League rankings. Loho asked if they were capable of this. Melissa focused and followed everything the coach said step by step. The girl was confident that she would succeed. Suddenly, a blue glow appeared around her body. Loho praised her, telling her to concentrate and hold on like this for a little while longer. Melissa tried, but this condition is so strange. Suddenly, she felt very exhausted. The coach reassured her that they would gain endurance over time, and it was great that they were all able to resonate in just one day. It was the first time Loco had seen such an amazing sensitivity to resonance. He asked the students what planet they were from. The boys were fascinated by the strange glow around their bodies. Each had its own color. Diego said that they were from planet Earth. Lojo had never heard of such a thing. He asked what universe it was in. Diego was confused. Earthlings do not know about other forms of intelligent life and do not travel through universes. The coach concluded that they were rednecks. Loco praised the guys. They did everything right. The exception was Gabriel. He was unable to enter into resonance. Kevin and Mechi laughed. They thought he was the best. The coach barked at them. No one asked their opinion. They were going to do 2,000 push-ups right now. Loco sat down next to Gabby and asked what was going on. The young man replied that he did not know. He followed all the steps, but he could not coordinate the energy. The coach asked Gabby if he really didn't remember their fight, what he felt. Gabriel replied that he vaguely remembered the desire to kill. Loco asked, but why? Gabi remembered the sensations or pleasure, excitement, it's hard to say. The coach understood why the guy couldn't align his energy with the flow. The whole point is that he is not in agreement with himself. For some reason, Gabi suppresses his true self. His mind is divided, in conflict. Loho pointed to the mask on his face. All warriors of his culture wear masks. It is a tradition because there are two types of warriors. There is a warrior who hates to kill. His mask protects his soul. It is the mask that will bear the burden of spilled blood. And conversely, there is a warrior who loves war. His mask reveals his soul, the face of a sower of death. Gabi didn't understand, but in both cases, it's the same thing. Loho asked if Gabriel was sure about it. The training was over for today, and Loho demanded that everyone leave. Standing in the shower, Gabi thought about Loho's story about the mask. The devil said that the coach was right. By hiding himself, Gabi had completely gone crazy. He can pretend not to notice the bloody double, but it doesn't change anything. The young man called the terminal and opened the mask section. Since they moved to another league, the selection of masks in the terminal has expanded. Gabriel found a mask with horns. The double smiled. Why not? At that very second, Gabi's face was covered in exactly the same mask as his inner double. The young man offered the double a deal. When he puts on this mask, it means he allows him to control. The double agreed, then asked if Gabi realized that he had been talking to himself all this time. The guy agreed. Yes, he seemed crazy. Gabriel applied his new mask to his face. Then he did everything that Loho told him to do. And then a lilac glow began to dance around Gabriel's body. The young man laughed. He succeeded. He couldn't wait to test this new power. There was a message from Caligan. They are going for a walk tonight. Gladys has prepared gorgeous outfits for everyone. The flight leaves in 20 minutes. Soon, the whole team left the house and headed towards the ship. Caligan was pleased. The boys were dressed very stylishly. Gladys pampered them. Kevin asked where they were flying. The sponsor smiled and said it was a surprise. The ship flew over a rich city bathed in lights. The owner commanded the pilot to begin the climb. The ship rose sharply upward. The passengers were surprised at what was happening. Caligan said that this evening he would lead them to a fight in the arena. But before that, he wanted to show them something. The ship hovered quite high above the planet. From above, it looked a little like Earth. Soon, they flew up to a huge arena. Other ships also flocked to this incredible structure. The boys looked at the arena with their mouths open. Caligan laughed. Isn't that right? The matches they participated in took place in the arenas of the lower levels. Today, he will take them to levels far above what they see. In the evening, they will witness an S-rank match. The presenter cheerfully greeted everyone present. She is happy to welcome everyone to the arena. The spectators in the stands shouted joyfully. On the upper floors were located expensive VIP boxes, where the guys in the company of Caligan were located. It was strange for the guys to find themselves in the arena as spectators. Gladys asked the chief if this was reasonable. They still owed a large sum. But Caligan was calm. The presenter exclaimed that today they would witness an exceptional match. This epic battle involves warriors with colossal strength. Are viewers ready to witness a collision that will shake the foundations of this planet? The entities roared joyfully. But before that, everyone must warmly welcome the unusual guest. Present in the arena is His Excellency Praxis I, the great bishop of the arena. The strange creature in red waved his hand in greeting. Caligan told Gabriel that this planet was ruled by a religious order. The stranger added that the bishop's guards are inquisitors. They are as strong as the S-League fighters. Melissa, looking at the stranger who entered, thought how handsome he was. Mehdi asked his new interlocutor who he was. Loco smiled, but the students did not recognize him by his voice. The boys surrounded the coach. Without the mask, he looked completely different. Caligan offered Loco a small drink, but he refused. The presenter began introducing the champions. In the arena is Akapuchnik, the grand champion of the S-League in this area, a summoner and a black wizard. His opponent will be a former great champion who is returning to the league after a long absence. His battles became legendary. His courage and strength were unparalleled. The great Hercules enters the arena again. The guys pressed their faces against the glass. It was incredible. He had a horse. This can't be a simple coincidence. It means he might be human. The presenter announced the start of the fight. The sorcerer said that he had great respect for Hercules, but his time in the arena was over. The former champion did not respond. The black wizard unleashed the endless plague of the abyss. Kevin cursed and asked what it was. A whole flock of snake-like monsters flew towards Hercules. The rider calmly assessed the sorcerer's attack. Pushing off from the arena, the armored fighter soared into the air. The sorcerer laughed. You can't escape from his little ones. Turning around, Hercules flew straight at the monsters. Finding himself slightly above the enemy, the warrior raised his golden spear. Several golden lightning bolts burst from the tip of the spear. The lightning bolts intensified many times over and flew towards the snakes. Soon, all of the sorcerer's monsters were struck by powerful lightning bolts. The audience jumped out of their seats with excitement. The boys watched the fight, frozen. Caligan, sipping his wine, noticed that Hercules was still in shape. Praxis smiled contentedly, enjoying the fight. The sorcerer opened his mouth in surprise. His snake monsters were killed with one blow. Hercules asked his opponent, "Is that all?" Coming to his senses, the black wizard said, "This is not the end." But the horseman cut off the sorcerer's head while riding. The presenter announced that Hercules won this fight. The spectators in the stands chanted the name of Hercules. Gabriel asked in confusion, "So this is the S League?" Kevin whispered that they would never reach that level. The winner grabbed his helmet, intending to take it off. The guys held their breath, but how was this even possible? Seeing the man on horseback, Gabriel understood why he took such a name. This means they are not the only people on this planet. Kevin smiled. They could find allies here for their escape. Hercules sighed. The level had dropped significantly. It was upsetting. Mechi said that means there are other people on this planet. Diego asked if Caligan knew there were more of their kind in the arena, but the sponsor casually replied that there were millions of different species here. Gabriel asked if he could meet Hercules. Caligan laughed. Heracles is an SS rank champion, and they are D rank newbies. Gabi has a good sense of humor. But to meet Hercules, they themselves need to become champions. The young man was confused, but now there was an S League match. Caligan said that SS is a more honorable rank. Such a league as such does not exist. That evening, Earth schoolchildren saw dozens of amazing battles. After the match, Caligan dropped them off at the estate and flew away. Gladys asked the chief if he was sure it was a good idea to show them these fights. Caligan's goal was to see their reactions, and he got what he expected. He wanted to see who would be scared and who would be fascinated by this power. However, he is surprised. Caligan thought that most would be frightened and temporarily lose control. After the walk, everyone came to the training arena. The boys sat quietly, and only Kevin desperately pounded the punching bag. What they saw in the arena made them all think. Caligan assumed that only Gabi would be strong enough to withstand this spectacle. But he was wrong. The old sponsor thought he knew how to evaluate people. Remembering the guys, Caligan laughed. This team is very promising. Kevin cursed and hit the exercise machine with all his might. Gabriel asked Kevin. He had already calmed down. But the guy couldn't be calm after seeing the fights. He was sure they would never reach that level. The team captain suggested that Kevin stop shouting and think. Diego supported Gabi. Hercules was human, like all of them. Melissa added that if he could reach such a level, then they could too. Mehdi and Fiona looked up with interest. This simple idea began to dawn on Kevin too. Gabi concluded that it was necessary to train and study resonance, and that there was no reason to panic. Kevin chuckled, but Gabi didn't have resonance. Gabriel smiled. Kevin was sure of it. The captain put on his mask and a glow began to flow around him. Everyone looked at Gabriel in surprise. Kevin asked what the mask was for. Gabi replied that it was a trick he had come up with. In addition, they need to gather as much information as possible about this world in order to develop an escape plan. That's why Gabi wanted to talk to Hercules. He has been living here for a long time. Diego suggested digging around the local network. There was probably an equivalent to the internet here. From this point on, the boys' survival depends on both the arena and the outside world. Yesterday's school children were surprisingly serious. They listened attentively to their team captain. For some reason, no one disputed his leadership anymore. Gabi said they had a lot of work ahead of them. But for now, it's time to go to bed. Training will resume tomorrow. Melissa asked Gabriel if she could talk to him. Diego looked sadly after the departing couple. The girl said sheepishly that they hadn't had a chance to talk since they slept together. Melissa wanted to apologize for leaving so suddenly without any explanation. The horned double asked what she was doing with the young man. The girl closed her eyes sadly and said that she was very sorry. Suddenly, Gabriel let out a chuckle. Unable to contain himself, the young man burst out laughing. Melissa asked Gabriel, confused, what happened. He asked if she could stop playing the role of the little vulnerable and caring girl. The girl looked at her interlocutor with wide eyes, and he added, "They are alone. She can stop playing this comedy. Perhaps her tricks would have worked on Diego or Mechi or even Kevin. Gabi laughed. Did she really think he could fall in love? Melissa whispered through her tears for Gabriel to shut up. The young man sighed. Now tears. Was this really all she had left? The girl swung and shouted at him to shut up. Gabi caught her hand and looked at the girl harshly. He said to stop playing. It was becoming offensive. But Melissa continued to cry quietly, her blue eyes shining in the darkness. Gabriel looked at her imperturbably. The girl continued to sob. Then the sobbing stopped and she looked at Gabi silently. Tears were still streaming down Melissa's cheeks as she laughed. She freed her hand and said, "Okay," Gabi caught it. Gabriel continued to watch her silently. Suddenly her expression changed. A battle spear appeared in Melissa's hand. She lunged, aiming for her interlocutor's neck. The young man caught the spear and advised Melissa to calm down. She had nothing to fear from him. But after what happened with Cedric, Melissa was afraid. Gabi said that Cedric was a fool. She is not like that. The young man said that he was not angry with her. Rather, on the contrary, he respected her even more. He asked if her suicide attempt was real. She answered yes and no. She was truly shocked by what they had been through. She hadn't intended to jump, but when she saw Gabi looking at her with concern, she wondered what would happen. He explained why Gabi decided to save her. If she had died, there would have been one less fighter. Diego or Mechi would have been easier to manipulate. So why did Melissa choose Gabi? The girl smiled because Gabi was the cutest of the three. Melissa asked what they were going to do now. Gabriel suggested that they actually trust each other. The red-haired beauty offered to go to her room, Gabi agreed. 18 months of hard training passed. The presenter welcomed sadists and perverts into the arena. The stands, as always, were packed with fight fans. The winner of today's match will be able to compete for a ticket to League A. The presenter reminded us of the method for advancing to the leagues. It's time to introduce today's fighters. The stands roared and applauded. The first team is the Predators, an unforgiving, hyper-violent team with a solid reputation. Today, they will meet a team that is considered one of the favorites of the season. There are 666 teams in the arena. This team is generating a lot of interest. Their meteoric career is truly amazing. The team's fighters were able to get closer to League A in less than a year. Many speak of them as true miracle workers. Will they be able to win in the arena of ferocious predators today? Very soon, viewers will see everything with their own eyes. The fans in the stands shouted the names of their favorite fighters. Caligan and Gladys watched the match with excitement from the VIP box. The match will be played in 6 one-on-one rounds, with the team that wins the most fights winning. Opponents will be selected randomly. In the first round, Diego will face Shum. The huge boar shouted to the young man that blood would now be shed. Diego sighed. He hated starting a fight. Gabi supported his friend, saying that he could handle it. Taking up an impressive hammer, Diego said it was time to go. The boar noticed that his opponent looked strong. Bowing to his opponent, Diego asked him to try not to die. He hates killing. The enraged boar asked what this impudent fellow had said. With an angry roar, Shuma rushed at the man from Earth. The opponents carried out test attacks using weapons. Diego clenched his fist and delivered his signature punch. The boar unexpectedly flew away from its enemy. Scratching his bruised belly, Shuma called Diego a freak. Shuma entered into resonance, his body blazing with scarlet energy. He filled his weapon with fiery energy. Swinging his axe, Shuma threw a huge fireball at Diego. The guy was surprised. Wow, how big. Diego also entered into resonance. His body was engulfed in golden energy. The strongman's hammer also glowed gold. A magic circle swirled on the hammer, and Diego struck Noise's fireball with the hammer. The young man tensed up. It was not easy to repel such an attack, and yet he sent a huge fireball back. Everyone held their breath. The boar couldn't believe his eyes. He was attacked by his own fire. There was a loud explosion. The presenter shielded herself with an umbrella from the surge of energy. The spectators in the lower stands closed their eyes. Diego didn't expect such an effect. The smoke cleared, and Shuma, still burned but alive, was still standing in the arena. The guy sighed with relief. His opponent was still alive. The boar roared that this was not the end. The fighter growled that he was going to kill the pathetic little man. Soon, the presenter announced that Shuma was knocked out. The winner of the first round was Diego. In the second round, Mechi will face Ipupo. Mechi praised Diego for the good fight, and he asked the young man to take care of himself. Mechi jokingly replied that he had no plans to die today. A shark man came out to fight Mehdi. The command was given to begin the battle. The presenter announced that Mehdi wins this round. This is already the second round in a row in favor of the 666 team. Mehdi took a breath. He had already decided that this would never end. It was sweaty. The Predator's sponsor threw his glass on the floor. He growled that this damn perch should have beaten this gnome. Diego was worried. His opponent Mehdi looked dangerous. Gabi was unhappy. Mehdi could have won much faster. It's all their damned custom of not wanting to kill. Melissa asked if the captain wanted strawberry ice cream. Mehdi returned from the arena. He regretted that he was badly injured. It would spoil their results. With the help of a medical droid, the boy went for treatment. Suddenly, Fiona felt a wave of nausea. Kevin asked what was wrong with her. She replied that everything was fine. A little hot, probably stress from the fight. In the third round, Duza from Predators will fight Fiona from 666. Kevin cursed. Was it really time already? Fiona reassured him that everything would be fine and there was no need to worry. A huge predatory snake like Duza crawled out into the arena. A determined Fiona stood opposite her. The command was given to begin the round. Duza warned that she was not as kind as those two losers before her. Fiona replied that they would see about that. Hearing the signal, Duza rushed forward with lightning speed. Fiona flew towards the hissing enemy. The snake woman quickly attacked the girl. Duza was surprised that Fiona could keep up with her. That was great. Fiona didn't understand why she felt so heavy. The snake extended its hand and pulled the girl's metal shield towards itself. The same thing happened with the blade. Fiona felt she couldn't escape Duza's clutches. The snake smiled predatorily, saying that she had caught it. The girl couldn't understand why she couldn't move. And then Duza's sharp tail flashed behind Fiona. The girl felt that she was wounded. Fiona gathered her strength and threw Duza away from her with an explosive stream. She laughed, a great trick. Taking off, the snake attacked the girl again. Fiona fought back successfully, but felt a constant weight. She generated another explosion, throwing the enemy back. Kevin yelled at his friend to keep up the good work. Caligan watched the fight silently. Melissa asked Gabi if he saw it. Fiona was already at her limit. Something was wrong. Indeed, the girl was already trembling. Duza said that the warm-up was over. The snake entered into resonance and said, "Let's begin a serious fight." Fiona shielded herself from the raging streams of energy. A green tornado swirled around the snake. Duza turned into a giant, deadly whirlwind and rushed at Fiona. The girl managed to jump back and dodge the attack. She didn't understand what was in front of her and how to deal with it. Fiona hid behind the shield and frantically thought about what to do. She hit the whirlwind with an explosion. Duza was surprised that the girl was able to survive, but this was only the beginning. Fiona cursed. If this went on, she would die, and she needed to endure it. She created a protective sphere around herself. Duza's huge green tornado hit Fiona. Kevin and Mehdi called out to the girl with concern. Fiona held on with all her might. The attack was very powerful. Duza hit the protective sphere, trying to destroy it. Soon, Fiona felt cuts on different parts of her body. This meant one thing: her defense had failed. Duza got tired and stopped her deadly rotation. Exhausted, Fiona fell into the arena. The snake exclaimed, "Very impressive." But Fiona was already at her limit and was unlikely to survive the next attack. Gritting her teeth, the girl stood up and asked Duza, "This long-tailed bitch is always so confident." The snake was stunned by what the little one had just said. Raising her blade, Fiona said that this was not the end. Duza shouted that she would gouge out the eyes of this slut. Fiona has almost no strength left. She will have to rely on one blow. This bastard will attack straight at her. She has to hit. And if it doesn't work out, at least she'll leave gracefully. The girl entered into a bright resonance. Blue energy flowed around her. She shouted at Duza to attack.